company. Summer days still hanging around here in Kansas City. An absolutely beautiful night for baseball at Kauffman Stadium. Tonight we got a couple of old friends colliding. It's the Minnesota Twins taking on the Kansas City Royals. Hello everyone, so glad you could join us with my partner CJ Nikowski. I am Eric Collins. Earlier today, the Cleveland Indians clinching the AL Central, but there still is good reason to watch both these teams here tonight. For the Minnesota Twins, CJ, they got 15 games remaining on the year. They may be the final 15 games of Joe Mauer's career.
Well, I think that Twins fans are hoping that won't be the case, but certainly something that Joe Mauer is considering. It's been 15 years in that Minnesota Twins uniform, and they'd love to see more of this. At 35 years old, he's still getting it done. And at the top of the order for Paul Molitor's club, you see the numbers, the 24 doubles. That OPS is just a tick below league average, but he gives that really good at-bat. And, of course, there's some leadership involved as well with Joe Mauer, and they have a young club, so they love that part and what he brings to the table. On the other side of things, for the Kansas City Royals, they are in that rebuilding phase, and one of the young stars right now that has emerged is Alberto Mondesi. Of course, the son of Raul Mondesi is really having a nice season, and Ned Yost had a lot of good things to say about Mondesi, what he has done so far, this young shortstop. Of course, we saw him in 2015 make his major league debut in the World Series, but now here in 2018, we're really starting to see the best version and what he could be right now. Ned Yost called him a legitimate five-tool player. You don't hear that too often.
Mondesi a home run in last night's Kansas City win. Royals winning on a walk-off grand slam home run by Salvador Perez. Kind of an interesting way to finish off a ball game, a 5-run ninth inning for the locals. Let's take a look at manager Paul Molitor's lineup card. Minnesota on the year hitting .245 as a bunch, 152 home runs. You see Joe Mauer continues to be the leadoff guy. Veteran pickup Logan Forsythe in the number 2 hole. Eddie Rosario, he's a big part of what they're going to do going forward. So is Max Kepler hitting in the 7th hole. Kepler with 18 homers on the year, and Gregorio Petit at third base, rounding out that 9 for the visitors from the Twin Cities. There's the starting pitcher tonight for the Kansas City Royals, veteran Ian Kennedy, going to get the ball for start number 20 on the year.
And you see it here, what the numbers have been. Not the year Ian Kennedy has wanted, but he has battled some injuries, a left oblique. This is just his second start since he came off the DL, but always has been a pretty good strikeout pitcher. You see it there, 93 of them in his 100 2/3 innings so far this season. We'll take a look at the pitch breakdown, what he has used so far this season. The fastball 60% of the time. That pitch sits around 92 miles per hour. You have the curveball, the changeup, the cut fastball as well. But how about the batting average on the changeup? Just a 123 opponent's batting average.
The defense behind Kennedy in the outfield. Alex Gordon remains to be elite out in left field. The Royals jackknife Whit Merrifield. A lot of times you see him at second. A lot of times you see him in center. Tonight he's in the middle garden with Jorge Bonifacio out in right field. Infield of Alcides Escobar over at third. We talked about Mondesi and what he can do both offensively and defensively at short. Herrera's the second baseman. They're really high on Ryan O'Hearn, midseason call-up. And behind the plate, Cam Gallagher will be spelling Salvador Perez, who's in the lineup but as the DH. Ben May will be calling the balls and strikes. Corey Blazer, Stu Sherwater, crew chief Gary Cederstrom. All right, CJ, let's take a look at your keys to the game, sponsored by Ford.
Yeah, we take a look at both the Minnesota Twins and the Kansas City Royals. And, of course, here in Kansas City, they talk about how Bo knows. Well, Joe knows, too. And we talked about what a great player he has been and continues to be and really has taken on a leadership role here for the Minnesota Twins. And then for the Kansas City Royals, start to finish. The starting pitching right now in Kansas City has been one of the best in the American League in September. Third best ERA, and so the starters have done a really nice job. They continue to rely on that starting pitching, and so for Ian Kennedy, mentioned his second start back, they need a good outing from him tonight.
All right, let's do it. Let's play some baseball Saturday night here in Kansas City, Missouri. Joe Mauer. Every season he's been such a fixture in the lineup for the Minnesota Twins, but quite possibly coming to the end of the line. Contract is up at the end of the year, and he has made it clear that he has not made his decision about what he wants to do for 2019.
He'll put some thought into it this offseason. He said when he has more time to really give it the full attention that it deserves.
Smokes it into the gap, left center field. He's done that before. Mauer on his way to second. Game opening double for Joe Mauer.
This is what you love about Joe Mauer, his ability to drive the ball the other way. He's so patient, but look at this fastball, little two-seam fastball with some good movement at 90 miles an hour. But instead of trying to pull that ball, look what the veteran does. Head down, drive it the other way. Even though they were playing him that way, he's still able to find the gap, drive the ball the other way. Those doubles, 25 of them now on the season.
That's something to think about if you're Joe Mauer. 2 weeks remaining in his season. Currently has an identical career batting average as his manager. Both Paul Molitor and Joe Mauer, 306 lifetime. They're split by just a couple of decimal points.
Does that mean if he gets a point up, he shut it down right there? Don't
yes.
wait till the offseason. You get to 307 this week and say, you know what? Actually, I made my decision, Skip. I want to finish ahead of you with an all-time batting average of 307.
Pretty good company. Paul Molitor, first ballot Hall of Famer. Also has been manager of the year, 4th season. Managing his hometown Minnesota Twins. Logan Forsythe, the batter. Softly to short. Mondesi. So Mauer has to remain at second. Next in line for Minnesota, Eddie Rosario. Rosario banged up, limited to DHing. But they're happy to have his bat in the lineup. Those 23 homers, 76 runs batted in. Still a relatively young player, 26 years of age, 9th most hits in the American League.
This guy's a good player. We talk about both of these clubs trying to get things turned around. A little bit of a rebuilding phase, I think, for the Twins. It wasn't necessarily what they were planning on this year. They went out, they were active this past offseason and thought maybe they could contend again after last season. It didn't happen, but the future is still bright. They still have some good young players that they can build around. And Rosario is one of those guys, not really young anymore, but certainly a cornerstone for the Twins.
First on the scene in 2015 did Rosario. Closed stance.
And what you like too about the Twins is you look at this situation here, and I still like this number. I know we get away from some of the batting average stuff, but look at their batting average with runners in scoring position this year, 276. That's 3rd best in the American League. Guys coming through in big spots. Joe Mauer has been one of those guys, hitting 400 with runners in scoring position, but the rest of the club doing a really nice job as well.
Straight behind home plate. Yeah, what was the old school notion? Don't tell me what you hit, tell me when you hit.
And it has some value. I mean, and listen, you can have a quality at bat and do the job and maybe not get a hit, right? Logan Forsythe's up in that situation, runner on second, nobody out. If he grounds out to the right side, you'll take it. He gets Joe Mauer over to third. It would go down as an 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position. So it's not just about the batting average, but you certainly like to see there's nothing wrong, certainly, with having a high batting average in those spots. I think it points to guys in clutch situations, how they're able to come through. Especially when you're looking at the team, right? The entire team. There's enough at-bats there and plate appearances to really give you a fair look.
Twins 67 and 80. Disappointment, thinking that maybe this was an opportunity to make a move this year. Didn't happen. Really never challenged the Cleveland Indians in the Central. Rosario didn't really see that pitch very well. Strikeout number 1 for Ian Kennedy.
Yeah, this was an uncomfortable swing from Eddie Rosario. You're going to see the pitch here from Ian Kennedy. Look at the movement there at 84 miles an hour. That split change that he has and turning it over, and the great run. And it's the late movement that generated that uncomfortable swing.
Joe Mauer beginning this inning with a double. He's still on at second with 2 outs. Robbie Grossman, the batter. Final day as a 28-year-old for Grossman. He'll turn 29 tomorrow. Grossman, like a lot of these players on both sides, thinking about his future, hoping to continue on in Minneapolis. Now in his 3rd year with the Twins after beginning his career down in Houston with the Astros. And for Grossman, you know, he'll have 4+ years of service time at the end of the year, so there's still 2 more years
of control for the Minnesota Twins, and he's had a pretty nice year. The on-base percentage has been really good at .353 coming into this one. The batting average at .267, and there was a time where you would look at .267 and say, that's not a great batting average. Well, league batting average these days is around .249, .250. So that's well above league average. He does a good job of getting on base. Good, I think, probably role player, as much as he would like to have that opportunity to get 600, 650 at bats in the course of a season. That hasn't happened for him. Most of his full years have been right in the mid 300s, and that's where he is again this year as a switch hitter. He gives you some nice versatility.
Kennedy's 2-1. Kennedy trying to get back to that dugout with a goose egg on the board. Didn't look promising after the double by Mauer, but now one strike away. Pitch missed and the count runs full. Should the inning continue, Jake Cave next for Minnesota.
They have thrown pretty much as many lefties and switch hitters as they can tonight at Ian Kennedy. Just 3 natural righties in the lineup tonight for Paul Molitor's club.
We'll do it again.
And the splits, you'd say that and you look at that and say, well, it must be, the splits must be off for Ian Kennedy. Not really. I mean, they're kind of split down the middle. 265 against lefties this year, 270 against right-handed hitters this year. So both pretty even.
Another 3-2 pitch. Softly. Shortstop Mondesi drifts out, makes the play, side retired. Leadoff double by Mauer goes by the wayside. Whit Merrifield leads off when we return. Twins don't score in their half of the first. Royals heading to the bat rack. This is what their lineup card looks like. 240 team batting average for the Royals. Merrifield, Mondesi, and Gordon, followed by Perez, O'Hearn, Bonifacio, Herrera, Escobar, and Gallagher. First pitch thrown by Chase DeYoung, and it's called strike one.
A breaking ball at that kind of interesting. Right, we think about the standard first pitch fastball, but not the case for DeYoung. as he came out with a breaking ball to start things off.
Broken bat. And that's foul right side, and Merrifield is going to need a new piece of lumber. Young has faced this Royals team within the last calendar week, and that was back on Sunday. Went 4 innings, as they say, was effectively wild.
Yeah, he threw the ball well. I mean, listen, 1 hit, no runs. You'll take it every single time. That, of course, was his debut. So his second appearance here in the big leagues will be against the Royals once again. And this was the pitch breakdown of what he used over his 4 innings. The fastball 59% of the time. You see the other pitches there. The fastball will sit around 90. And that changeup, his secondary offering, in which he uses the most, has been averaging around 83. The slider 82, and the curveball around 77.
0-2 to Merrifield, bends him back. Whit Merrifield, 29 years of age, putting up a tremendous line. Look at the batting average. See the power numbers, runs really well. He was last year's American League leader in stolen bases and is hoping to do it for a second consecutive year this season. Just needs to get on base, and Ned Yost says run free.
They're not afraid to let their guys run, which is kind of counteractive to what you see the tendency around the league, right? Less stolen base attempts, even though there's still some good runners, and a lot of that has to do with percentages, success rates, and the risk versus reward that a lot of teams believe isn't necessarily there. But Ned Yost not afraid at all, flying in the face of the new wisdom, I guess you'll call it. He lets his guys run.
Let's take a look at the proven performer, sponsored by Gatorade. Whit Merrifield among the league leaders in a bunch of categories. And after falling down in the count 0-2, doing a good job of at least seeing a bunch of pitches here to begin this bottom of the first inning.
And this is a guy, and you see the numbers right there, and they're certainly impressive, but also just a really great story when you talk about perseverance. He was on the 40-man roster for 3 straight years with the Royals, but never got a look in the big leagues, and eventually they had to take him off. You can't do that to a player for that long, and he cleared waivers, and not a team in baseball claimed him, and then he got his opportunity at the big league level, and things changed dramatically. And so why Whit Merrifield was plugging away and going through boxes of bats the way he is so far tonight, it looks like he broke another one. In 2016, he finally did get that first look and played in 81 games and did a really nice job, and he's only gotten better every year since then. You mentioned leading the league in stolen bases now 2 years in a row, 19 home runs. This is a really impressive player that a lot of teams, like other teams, take notice of Whit Merrifield, right? He's that kind of guy. You can move him around, bunch of different defensive positions. He'll steal you a bag. He'll hit you an extra base hit. Really a nice player overall, and one that completely flew under the radar. Did not make his big league debut until his age 27 season. That's what I love about our game. We got a lot of stories like that. There's not too many sports where a guy's breaking through at 27 or having a career year at 28. You can do it in baseball.
All right, we've already seen Merrifield break 2 bats during this at bat. From your memory of your days as a longtime big leaguer, home team, how many bats does a player generally have available to him?
I'd say at least a couple dozen. I mean, they're not going to all be in the dugout, right? They have their 3 or 4 gamers that they bring down every day, but there are certainly more in the supply closet, which they may have to dig into for Whit Merrifield.
How about that 10th pitch of the at bat, and it's a line drive into the gap in left center. Merrifield, who runs very well, will have himself a stand-up double. Chase DeYoung at wit's end, trying to figure out how to get something past Whit Merrifield.
Yeah, it's difficult to strike him out, and DeYoung is not an overpowering guy, and so he goes back there. You see a little kind of cut fastball at 91 miles an hour, had some action on it, but it was in the strike zone. That allowed Merrifield to put this nice swing on it right here, and just like the Minnesota Twins, the Kansas City Royals have themselves a leadoff double.
So Merrifield on at second. Remember, the Twins had that leadoff double by Maury just mentioned, but they couldn't advance him ever to third. See if the Royals can do a little bit better. Adalberto Mondesi. Switch hitter, hits from the left side, shows bunt. It's still 1985 here in Kansas City.
They're okay with that. They like 1985. And again, I think that goes back to a little bit about Ned Yost. He's a throwback to some degree. Not that he is, I mean, listen, he is up to date with the data. They use it without a doubt. They don't ignore it. But some of the game strategy may have a little bit of a different feel compared to what you're seeing. And listen, you got a guy that can run, that's hitting the left side right now. You got Joe Mauer back. It could be a sack or it could turn into a base hit. It's one of those situations where you have guys with good wheels that you can take those chances. And if it only turns into a sacrifice, fine. But you're actually going for the base hit in that spot.
Now the bunt's off now, 0-2. Nedjo's telling us before the game that he feels that Mondesi has the most power of anyone on this year's Royals team.
Well, he certainly has shown it and getting that opportunity now. He's got 221 plate appearances. That's more than he had in any season up to this point in his young career. But look what he's done here lately. 383 over his last 15. The OPS nearly 1100. Driving the ball and scoring runs. This guy is a real threat all the way around.
Well, just like we saw the first Royals batter, Young got Merrifield down in the count 0-2, but then allowed Merrifield back into the at bat, eventually gets a double. Mondesi was down 0-2, but now the count is even at 2-2, and the advantage is no longer with DeYoung. Smoke down the right field line. This one is foul.
Young would like to have a quick at bat here sooner than later. He's getting ready to throw pitch number 16. Has not recorded an out yet. Now, not surprising that you're not going to see a lot of swing and miss. You've seen it already. The fastball is not overpowering. He throws the 4-seamer over the 2-seamer. They've asked him to eliminate that 2-seam fastball. They felt like it wasn't a good pitch for him, so it's been more 4-seam fastballs, which requires those off-speed pitches to really be on point because it's not an overpowering 4-seam fastball.
Broken bat. Forsythe plays at first. That gets Merrifield over to third. So Mondesi didn't get the bunt down, but he eventually does the exact same thing with the ground ball to the right side. Let's take a look at the defense for the Minnesota Twins. Grossman in left, Cave in center. Kepler, who's got an absolute hose in right field. Petit, Adrianza is the shortstop. Forsythe and Mauer right side of the infield. And a really interesting, fun-looking young player, Willians Astudillo, behind the plate. This is a guy who's 5'9". Looks a lot like Pudge Rodriguez back in his zenith. Very active behind the plate.
He's been a little bit of an internet sensation. Some memes for Astudillo that have been making their way around social media. Fun guy, brings a ton of energy, plays hard. He's got a little of that Pablo Sandoval look to him, I think, as well. Some personality to go with it.
Alex Gordon, the batter. Shift has 3 twin infielders on the right side. Gordon, a 3-time All-Star, 11 homers on the year. He's played 128 games.
Not surprising to see the Twins shifting here. 5th overall in shifts used so far this season. And they've been good too. It's one thing to shift a lot, which a lot of teams do, but Inside Edge does a really nice job of tracking basically hits allowed via the shift and hits prevented via the shift. And they were a plus 44, which means they've taken away 44 more hits than they have given up. That is also 5th in the league.
Called strike. There's StatCast AI powered by AWS. You're talking about why the shift is happening.
There you go. And yeah, I got to believe too, if you didn't have a runner at third base right now, that your third baseman would be over even further and probably playing that deep shortstop position. Obviously, you don't want that lead to get too big.
On the ground, this should drive in the game's first run. Merrifield scores. The out's recorded at first. That's a 6-3 putout. RBI number 43 on the year for Gordon. And Kansas City takes a 1-0 lead.
Well, Nedjo certainly approves as we're talking about kind of the philosophies here, and you get that spot. First of all, you see Alex Gordon going up and getting a fastball that's up and away. Does a nice job of hooking it, hitting it on the ground on the right side, knowing that the defense is essentially conceding the run by playing back. You get the leadoff double, ground ball to get him over, and a ground ball to get him in.
Here's last night's hero, Salvador Perez, 28-year-old from Venezuela. Had a walk-off grand slam homer to win it for the Royals last night. one of those things. It was a difference of about 2 feet between being a one-run single and a Grand Slam home run.
Certainly for Salvador Perez, he'll take that home run. It's been a good year for him in that department and a nice steady climb for him we've seen over the course of his career, but he is susceptible to the big swing.
There it was last night. Didn't go that far over the fence, but it went far enough. 1-0 Royals. Welcome back. Top of the second inning. Minnesota trailing Kansas City 1-0. Jake Cave leads things off for the Twins. Off-speed pitch flailed at by Cave. Kennedy ahead in the count 0-2.
A good curveball there from Ian Kennedy, and that curveball is important for him. It really does keep guys off the fastball and has that 92 to 93 play up a little bit higher when he's able to keep that breaking ball in the zone.
Ball and 2 strikes. After Cave, we'll see Astudillo and Kepler here in the Twins half of the second inning. Twins got a leadoff double by Joe Mauer to begin the game, but then Forsythe, Rosario, and Grossman all making outs, and the inning ended with Mauer still anchored to the bag at second. Cave, originally a draft choice of the New York Yankees 2011. Yankees the only organization he had ever known until this spring, when he was dealt from New York to Minneapolis.
As a young player, you get a little bit excited sometimes. As much as you have that dream of breaking through and being a New York Yankee, it's also a tough roster. You look at what's there and the fact that they go out and they trade for guys like Stanton, they trade for McCutchen, right? They bring in big names, and trying to break that roster, crack that roster as a rookie. I mean, that's always been like that. You go back 20 years, it's been a real challenge. Now, the Yankees had that nice run, of course, with Jeter and the boys and everything else, but I got to believe he probably welcomed that trade and the idea that he's now playing for the Minnesota Twins and getting an opportunity to play in the big leagues, a rookie, and he's done a pretty good job so far for Paul Molitor.
And time is called. Yeah, how would you have liked to have been a young shortstop in the Yankee chain during the 20 years that Derek Jeter was doing his thing in Gotham?
Probably calling your agent every couple of weeks. Can you get me out of here?
Foul tipped and caught by Gallagher. How about that? A little bit, little bumpity bounce. Out number 1. and send you back to the studio. An update. Here's Mike Hill. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, Christian Yelich, he is so much fun to watch. Looks the part, long and lanky. He is probably the polar opposite to this guy right here. You got the squatty, the pudgy, Willians Astudillo. 17 games as a big leaguer after spending seemingly a lifetime in the minor leagues, both with the Philadelphia Phillies, the Atlanta Braves, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, but getting an opportunity. And this is a guy with the skill set. Hard to sneak anything past him.
They like him. He's a guy that does not strike out very much. He won't walk either. He puts the ball in play. He's out hacking pretty early. And even the fact that he's now going to see 4 pitches in this at-bat seems like a lot for him. And I was asking Paul Molitor about it. I said, well, do you look at that as a good thing or a bad thing? Because you can take the guys that work counts and look at them and say, yeah, those guys do a really good job. But there's some good hitters that get out of there pretty quickly. Jose Altuve is one of those. And Andrelton Simmons is another. He's having a really nice year offensively. They don't wait around. They put the ball in play pretty quickly. So, well, it's not quite to their status just yet, but I could see where maybe that would work for him.
The factoid that's just amazing about Astudillo, the guy at the plate right now, his last 26 plate appearances has not once swung and missed. We're not talking about a strikeout. We're just saying just actually missing the baseball. Puts this one into play, so it's now 27 plate appearances without swinging and missing. They're now 2 outs here in the second inning. And when he's put the ball in play, he's getting some results. Had a walk-off homer against the Royals last weekend.
Yeah, hanging breaking ball. For guys that put the ball in play and don't swing and miss, it's not a very good pitch. I mean, generally a hanging breaking ball is not a good pitch anyway, but the excitement there from the Twins, their fans, and then from Astudillo himself. What a good time for this young group, still having a little bit of fun. Not the season they wanted to have, but still enjoying a really nice moment like that.
Max Kepler swings at the first pitch, lost it down the left field line. Long run for Gordon. He's not going to get there.
That ball had some serious hang time on it, but the way that the outfield was set up, no chance for anybody to get to that ball. There's a decent amount of room here. Foul territory at Kauffman Stadium. That was a long run for Alex Gordon.
This facility opened up back in 1973. Still holds up really well. Gorgeous ballpark.
And the renovations they've done over the years, they've done an excellent job. But you're right, the upkeep, what people that will tell you, players that played in the league for a long time, it is incredible to see the great shape that this stadium is in, the great job that they do here in Kansas City with this place.
Yeah, the old time story was that Frank White, one of the greatest players in the history of the Kansas City Royals, he was the second baseman on those great teams in the 70s and early 80s. Frank White actually grew up in Kansas City, and as an odd job as a late teenager, actually was working on the crew when they built this stadium.
Wow, that's awesome. Because you have that dream, right? If you're a kid and
there's Frank White,
you want to be a baseball player and you're working at the stadium, like, I'm going to play here one day. And I'm sure there's a lot of young men that say that, but to actually make it happen is pretty cool.
The house that Frank White built,
literally.
Kepler, 2 balls and 2 strikes. 2 outs here in inning number 2. And again, that shift this time, Ned Yost begrudgingly putting on the shift.
So they actually do it quite a bit also. I mentioned that the Twins are 5th overall in shifts used. Well, the Kansas City Royals are 6th, right behind them. And probably a shock to most people that they don't look at this stuff. And I understand sometimes it could, maybe you're not that interested in defensive shifts. The Cubs, dead last. And we look,
Joe Madden.
And we look at them as kind of,
oh my goodness,
advanced organization.
Yes.
They just don't use them very often. The Astros use them the most. The Cubs use them the least. 2 teams likely going to the postseason.
That's the great thing about baseball. A lot of different ways to accomplish anything. Talking about body sizes, talking about strategies,
age. Once you actually get to the big leagues, and can be impactful. Part of that has to do with your personnel too. If you have good defenders, you can afford to not shift as much, right? Guys that have good range, you don't have to put them in the absolute perfect spot. You might want to give them a little bit of leeway and where they might be most comfortable.
So Kepler works a 2-out walk. That's just the second base runner allowed by Kennedy. He gave up the leadoff double to Joe Mauer in the first inning and then retired 5 in a row. Here's the shortstop, A-Ray Adrianza. Venezuelan, 29 years of age. Long-time farmhand with the San Francisco Giants. Oh, bad pickoff throw. Kepler on his way to second. That'll be an error on Kennedy. Upset with himself for putting Kepler into scoring position.
I thought he had a chance here with the quick feet, and you see the hard throw, but that throw was way to the right. Watch it here as it just kind of sails, and a much tougher play for a left-handed first baseman to try to get to that ball. That's a good look right there. If you saw Mondesi as he kind of came behind Kepler and just shook his head no. And the pitcher and the shortstop having that communication as if to say, I'm not going to sneak in behind him. Go ahead and be comfortable throwing your pitch. Just as Ian Kennedy had come set and made eye contact. Mondesi let him know, because there's a decent amount of room there. See it again.
Towards right, that's going to get down. Let's see if Kepler's set. Yep, they're going to send him. The throw not nearly in time and off the mark. That means that Adrianza's going to take an extra base. We're tied at 1 here in the second inning. All this happening with 2 outs from Minnesota.
Great base running right there by Max Kepler. I mean, obviously a really nice base hit by Adrianza. But Kepler gets himself to second base after the error. You're going to see the pitch here. That changeup sat right in the middle at 84 miles an hour. And I thought there was going to be a chance here at a potential play, because you see Bonifacio lined right behind that ball and looked like he was in a good position to make a good throw, but it was well up the line. And a good read as well by Adrianza, which you want to see your young players doing. Running the base as well, doing those little things right.
Here's Gregorio Petit, number 9 hitter in the lineup today. Veteran playing third base. Called strike 1, in case you're wondering. Adrianza moving from first to second on the throw. Even though the ball got past the catcher, that's not going to be a throwing error.
Yeah.
It's just he was on his way towards second anyway, and just made it comfortably because the throw was offline.
Well, he had some options there, and part of that was too is if you feel like there's going to be a play at the plate, because if that throw was on line, I think there would have been a play. So as a base runner, you may decide you're going no matter what, and you're going to try to draw the first baseman into cutting that ball off, because he's going to see you in front. He said, well, if I get him to cut it off, I guarantee the run will score. And there are times over the course of the game, and there's signals that third base coaches will do with runners and hitters they understand, where they're like, we'll trade the out for the run. We'll go ahead and do it if it's possible. So I think he saw that throw, because it wasn't a high throw. It wasn't one that necessarily missed the cutoff man, but he made that decision that he was going to go and maybe force the first baseman into a tough decision.
Kennedy wanted it, didn't get it. A ball and 2 strikes. Petit's been playing pro ball since 2001. 18 years as a pro. Still just 33 years of age.
Talked about that pitch count climbing up on DeYoung early. Well, here is Ian Kennedy. Now this inning alone, 25 pitches. He is now throwing, I believe it's 41 in the game.
Remember, inning could have been over. There was a towering foul ball left field line. Gordon couldn't get to it because he was shaded way over into the gap in left center. But since that, we've probably had an extra dozen pitches. And Kennedy, nobody home at second.
He's keeping a really close eye, obviously, especially this inning on the Minnesota Twins and their runners. He has not picked a runner off all year. In fact, he's only picked off 2 over the last 4 years. It's not something that he does very often, but it's not just about picking guys off. It's also keeping them close and to make sure they don't get big leads and score easily on a base hit.
So again, 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, second inning. Already a run in for Minnesota Twins. Kennedy struck out a pair. Broken bat. Mondesi's going to have to hurry. Gets his man. Side's retired, but the Twins tied at 1. Swiffer. If you got a life, you got a Swiffer. Welcome back, everyone. City of Fountains, Kansas City, Missouri. 1-1 tie. Twins and Royals. Ryan O'Hearn leads things off for Kansas City against Chase DeYoung. Royals scoring a run after a Whit Merrifield double. Alex Gordon ground out in the first inning. Now O'Hearn's going to have to battle. Down to the count 0-2.
Done a nice job so far here, has the rookie. 33 games. You see the numbers there overall. 10 home runs for him. The on-base percentage very impressive at .381.
If you haven't heard of O'Hearn, you haven't been paying attention. Since he got called up July 31st, he's the American League leaders in homers. O'Hearn right there in the thick of things. Off speed, can't figure it out. That's 2 strikeouts now for DeYoung. Let's go back to the studio. Mike Hill. Mike, thank you so much. On Duhar, an embarrassment of riches for the Yankees. Not only do they have more money than basically everyone, but they've got a tremendous input of young talent this year. Bonifacio. Oh, the good times keep rolling for him. Went 3 for 4 last night with a double. This time a little blooper, maybe a broken bat shot into left center field that falls.
Yeah, it sounded like it may have been, and it's not all about necessarily how hard you hit it, but where you hit it. And for Bonifacio, he'll take it. 4-seam fastball split right down the middle around belt high. Didn't get the barrel on it. He just dropped it right there in the Bermuda Triangle.
All right, CJ. That's now 6 batters for the Royals against DeYoung, and we've already had 4 broken bats. Explain it.
I tell you what, it's kind of tough to explain because, again, it's not overpowering stuff. Now, he mixes his pitches well, and what you've seen so far, for the most part, he does a good job of inducing weak contact, right? And so that will get you some of those broken bats. And we could talk about the radar gun all day and say, well, we're only seeing 90 to 91, but what does it look like to the hitters? And chances are, based on what we have seen in some of those swings, that it's jumping on hitters a little bit. He moves that fastball around really well. It's good movement on a changeup there at 82 miles an hour. So if you're going to induce weak contact, these guys are hitting the ball at the end of the bat. They're getting jammed, and that could result in some broken bats like we've seen so far tonight. When you think about it, if you're, Chris Sale nasty or Max Scherzer, you're just missing the baseball. If you got good late movement, even if you're not overpowering a guy, you're hitting it, but you're just not hitting it very well.
So if you were a hitter, if you were consistently breaking your bat, would you think that maybe you were doing something wrong?
I'd just start borrowing teammates' bats for sure. If you got a guy that's a bat breaker, oh wow, did I grab that by accident? Oh, so I thought that was mine.
Rosell Herrera, 25-year-old second baseman. He is new to this Royals organization. He was in the Colorado Rockies chain for a long time. Began the year in Cincinnati with the Reds, but now one of these many Royals basically auditioning for his future. On the ground, Mauer smothers it. He'll take it to first himself. There are now 2 outs. Bonifacio moves to scoring position. Families affected by Hurricane Florence urgently need support. Help the American Red Cross provide meals and shelter to these families. Donate today by going to redcross.org or text Florence to 90999 to give $10 to American Red Cross Hurricane Relief.
Saw a number today regarding Hurricane Florence that absolutely blew my mind. It said that it will drop 18 trillion gallons of water. So what? I don't know how you get there and figure that out, but that is absolutely incredible.
Alcides Escobar, nothing there. Yeah, the slow path of Hurricane Florence. They say that you could run faster than the way it's going through the Carolinas. Sometimes 5 miles an hour as it just creeps and creeps and creeps inland.
Those weathermen obviously have never seen me run. I don't know if I could outrun that hurricane.
Escobar, that'll get down. Bonifacio being waved around third. Caves throw, not in time. 2-out RBI base hit for Escobar, and it's a 2-1 lead for Kansas City.
A nice moment here for Alcides Escobar, the longtime Royal, getting an opportunity with that runner in scoring position. Good fastball away at 90 miles an hour, but a good approach from Escobar, not trying to do too much. We saw Joe Mauer go the opposite way to start off this game for the Twins. Now you see Escobar doing the same thing in a big spot with a runner in scoring position for the Royals. This was a pretty good throw too. Just a little bit late. Not much more Jake Cave could do with that throw. It was right on the money.
Escobar, RBI number 30 on the year. Cam Gallagher called strike 1. Well, when the Royals were going good, including that World Series championship in 2015, they were known as a team that put the ball in play. And sometimes simply putting the ball in play is all that needs to be done. Both the runs, both singletons by the Royals in the first and the second, just productive groundouts leading to the runs being scored.
Yep, pressure on the defense, I think, is always a big one. You like seeing that, especially in today's game. It sticks out even more, right? Because strikeouts are up. We saw 40,000 of them, better than 40,000 of them last year. That was a record. We haven't seen that many in our game, and the strikeout rate's near the same as what it's been. So when you get a team that can put a little pressure on the defense, it's certainly a good tactic.
DeYoung, 2-1 pitch to Gallagher. High and foul, out of play. Cam Gallagher, 25 years of age. Spelling Salvador Perez, getting the night off defensively.
Some auditions right now for the Kansas City Royals as far as their backup catcher goes. Salvador Perez is the guy. Drew Butero was traded recently. He'd been the backup for a while. When you back up to Salvador Perez, there's not a ton of opportunities.
Humpback liner gets into left field. Escobar on his horse. He'll make it to third standing. So another 2-out base hit. Second consecutive for Kansas City. And runners are on the corners.
Good at bat here. Look at this slider backing up. They were trying to go down and away. This ball finished in and maybe even a little bit in off the plate. That kind of cement mixer backup slider, we call it. And it just hung there for Gallagher, who does a nice job of lining that ball into left field and to keep this rally going.
So the lineup turns over. Runners on at the corners for the leadoff man, Whit Merrifield. Merrifield broke a couple of bats his first time up, but ended up with a double. Ball down low. Mentioned Hurricane Florence and the devastation it's causing to both South Carolina and North Carolina. Whit Merrifield's hometown of Mocksville, North Carolina, in the crosshairs. Popped up. Will it be playable? Astudillo makes the play. Side is retired. So Royals back on top 2-1. Top of the third inning. Royals on top of the Twins 2-1. Let's take a look at our Bass Pro Shop player profile. We're talking about Joe Mauer, the 35-year-old.
Yeah, it's been a really incredible career. You see the 3 batting titles, 6 All-Stars, the Gold Glove, the Silver Slugger, of course that MVP back in 2009, and been pretty steady over the course of his career. 15 seasons now in the big leagues, and will number 16 be there? That's the big question right now for Minnesota Twins fans. And asking Paul Molitor about that, I thought it was pretty interesting to hear him talk about that decision that every player has to go through, the one that he had to make. Kind of told us the story of his decision when that ultimately came, and Joe Mauer's going to have some honest conversations with himself. It's not about whether or not he can play. I think he's proven it. He can play. He plays a pretty good first base and does a nice job. It's sometimes what happens when you get home, the offseason. Do you want to do the work? Not that he doesn't want to work, but that all that prep, is that going to pay off, or do you really like being home? Do you look forward to being home? And does your wife want you home? She usually says yes. Then you're home all the time, and she's like, wait a minute. I don't know if I necessarily wanted this. So a lot of different questions and a lot of adjustments to be made. But Joe Mauer, from a talent standpoint, certainly isn't done. It's just a matter of whether or not he wants to continue.
Well, I guess maybe from another perspective, Joe Mauer, as great as he's been with those 3 batting titles and all those hits and doubles, he is exclusively a first baseman now. Hasn't caught since 2013. As a first baseman in 2018 or next year 2019, can you live with the numbers he's been putting up this year? Into center field, play is made by Merrifield. We're talking
it's good
modest power. 6
Sure.
homers on the year. Obviously can't take the runs batted in really into consideration because he's a leadoff guy, but he's not your classic first base bopper.
He's not, but then at the same time, think about how that position has changed. You know, go back, say, a decade in the American League. It was a fight.
Oh,
Who was going to be the starter in the All-Star game among first base?
Giambi
days,
Fred
right?
Thomas,
Yeah.
Jim Thome.
Palmeiro. I mean, it was the list of guys that were absolute boppers. That has changed a little bit, even though power is up in the game. That has changed a little bit. So I kind of wonder, you know, about that part. And listen, it's a fair question without a doubt. But I think the way that the Minnesota Twins are built and what they have, that's the question they have to ask themselves. Would he get in the way of anybody that we would want to throw out there? And I think that's, you know, that's something they have to talk about themselves. But they'll welcome him back with open arms if he wants to do it. So
can you ever see Joe Mauer in a different uniform?
No.
Possibly going to a different organization as a 36-year-old next year?
I don't think so, and I don't think he would either. Obviously, he's one of their own from St. Paul, of course. Local boy, does good. He was supposed to, if he didn't sign, was going to go to Minnesota, right, to be their quarterback. And so the idea that he would put on any other uniform, I can't imagine it. I don't think he'll do it.
Forsythe is denied. Nice play by Alcides Escobar. That is out number 2 here in the 3rd inning.
And it's nice to say that because there's not too many guys that we really get a chance to say that about. Mike Trout is one of those guys, and he obviously still has a lot of time left in the game. But guys that will get to their mid-30s and have not changed uniforms, it's going to be a rarity in our game.
I may have to look that one up. If memory serves, I thought he was going to go to Florida State.
Oh, was it Florida State?
I think
You might be
Florida
right.
State. I think Bobby Bowden had him.
You might be right.
Yeah, he was an elite quarterback. We're talking about the #1 recruit in the country as a quarterback.
I operated about a 50% facts are accurate rate. It's not bad if you're, you know, doing something else besides.
Well, you played against another guy from Cretin-Durham Hall High School in St. Paul who played quarterback at Florida State, Chris Winkie. You played against Winkie back in the International League in 1996 when he was a Syracuse Chief.
Well, it's really amazing to see. You don't see it as much, right? These guys that are really good baseball players. Who's the guy that the A's just drafted? Was it the A's?
Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Yes.
9th overall pick in the draft, and he's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, he is.
Drew Henson, right? Didn't Drew Henson do it?
Sure. Chad Hutchinson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe Borchard. Actually, here locally, the Kansas City Royals are still smarting. They got a kid who they thought was going to be everything. A high school quarterback who was committed to go to Nebraska and play. Bubba Starling, first-round pick, top 10 pick a handful of years ago for Kansas City, and didn't actually work, at least thus far, for Bubba Starling here in the Royals chain. Rosario skies this one deep left center field. Gordon going back and makes the play. So the side is retired. It's a 1-2-3 inning. 2-1 lead, Kansas City. Tomorrow, it's a great slate of NFL action headlined by an NFC North rivalry. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings heading to Lambeau to take on the Packers, only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Check local listings for the game in your area. Adalberto Mondesi leads things off for Kansas City here in the third inning. Royals leading the Twins 2-1. Mondesi, Gordon, and Perez to bat against Chase DeYoung. Mondesi was actually born in California, born in LA when his father Raul Mondesi was playing for the Dodgers. But he spent the majority of his youth in the Dominican Republic. Hard, three-hop smash, backhanded by Mauer. One down. Royals scoring a run in the first. RBI single, RBI ground out by Alex Gordon. And a run in the second and an RBI single by Alcides Escobar.
Finishing up that conversation about when you should retire, I thought it was pretty fascinating as Paul Molitor was walking us through 1994-95. Of course, there was a work stoppage, no World Series in 1994, and then the season started late in 95 with those players still on strike. And he said he was kind of on the fence and got off to a pretty slow start and thought about shutting it down. And he was pretty involved in player negotiations as a player rep. And then he goes on. Then I played 3 more years, and he just kind of like mumbled over it real fast. I was like, "Oh, is that all?" Just I was going to retire. Then I played 3 more years, and had just a tremendous career. You brought up a pretty good point. Had he shut it down at that point in 1995, he would not have had his 3,000 hits.
Finished with 3,319 hits. Only 9 humans have had more hits than Paul Molitor. Softly into center. That'll get down. Jake Cave was dreaming big dreams, thinking maybe he could rob Gordon, but he cannot. One-out base runner for the Royals.
And I wouldn't have minded if Paul Molitor shut it down. So we take a look at the replay. There's a changeup. You see how much he turns it over. Look at the great movement that DeYoung gets on that changeup. It's a good one, and that's why this one went off the end of the bat. Sounded like it may have cracked the bat. Couldn't hit very hard, but down for a base hit, and a smart decision by Cave not to go for it. But that year, 1995, was also my rookie year, and I got the chance to face Paul Molitor.
Awesome.
And he hit a line drive off my inner thigh. And I was not wearing the proper protection at the time. Unfortunately, it only hit my inner thigh and knocked me out of the game. Sparky Anderson was my manager in Detroit. It was the first inning. I picked it up. I threw him out. And I come back in, and Sparky says, "You all right?" And I pull my pants on. I had a huge black and blue, probably about 8 inches in diameter on my inner thigh. I said, "Oh, I'm fine." He looked at my leg. He was like, "No, you're done." And he took me out of the game. Thanks all to Paul Molitor. A 1-inning start.
Should have signed it. Sign your bruise. Signed by a Hall of Famer. Salvador Perez. 6-time All-Star. Struck out on 3 pitches first time up. This time trying to walk. Maybe on 4 pitches. It's 3-0.
Well, it's not really in his DNA. He doesn't love it. He loves to swing. This is a guy that goes hacking as much as anybody in Major League Baseball. He'll chase pitches out of the zone. He's always up near the top. That swing percentage that we talk about, how often you go outside of the zone and swing at pitches that are not strikes.
Aggressive swing, 3-0.
It's been a good year, though, for Salvador Perez, especially against the Twins. How about that? 20 RBIs. That is one shy of the Royals' single season record against the Twins. He'll have an opportunity to
Big John Mayberry
stand alone, who was here pregame.
Yes, saw him. Big John Mayberry, who did it in 1972. We saw John Mayberry pregame. Looked like he was about 45 years of age. Not aging a bit. High drive, shallow left field. Calling for Grossman. 2 down. So Gordon's still on at first base. Last man to get for Chase DeYoung is Ryan O'Hearn. O'Hearn struck out swinging back in the second inning. One of 2 strikeouts for DeYoung so far through 2 2/3. O'Hearn facially looks a lot like Mark Teahen.
Yeah, sure.
O'Hearn, 25 years of age, originally an 8th round draft choice back in 2014. Sam Houston State, Huntsville, Texas.
So whenever you're looking at rookies, you always look about the adjustments that they're going to make at the big league level. I think this is certainly a good sign, even though somewhat of a small sample size. Going against that same starting pitcher, what he has done the second time he has seen that pitcher, well, I'd say this young man is learning as he goes and tracking some tendencies.
You had no access to that information when you were playing, am I correct?
The thought never even crossed your mind. I mean, you knew about facing guys multiple times and maybe how you'd want to get there, right? The old adage was try not to show them too much of your repertoire early on. If you can get through the lineup one time with mostly fastballs and fastball changeup to save your other stuff when you really needed it later in the game, that was how the conversation went. It wasn't, hey, third time through the order, guys are hitting 320 off of you, so we're just going to get you out of there before it happens more often than not if the game is close, which, of course, the Dodgers are maybe the biggest proponent of that with their rotation, and a lot of teams pay attention to those numbers now. But you're absolutely right. It wasn't anything we thought about, at least in the sense that we could put a number on it. Say, you know, these guys are good at it. These guys struggle in those spots, and that's why we're seeing so many different things happening with the openers and starters now becoming the guy who comes in the second inning because of those numbers.
In Alex Gordon's younger days, this may have been a running opportunity. 2 outs and 2 strikes. See how frisky he is, not going. And O'Hearn flails and strikes out for the second time. On Fox as the Phillies take on Freddie Freeman and the division-leading Braves, or the Cardinals continue their playoff push against the Giants. Regional action starts next Saturday at 12:30 Eastern on Fox, Fox Deportes, and the Fox Sports app. Check local listings. Top of the 4th inning, Robbie Grossman leads things off for the Twins. Grossman, Cave, Astudillo batting against Ian Kennedy. Twins got their run back in the 2nd inning. Grossman first time up, popped out to the shorts now. Mondesi.
So we're just talking about times through the order and how teams track this, and we even have the opportunity to track it, as we showed you second time through for a hitter last inning, Hearn. But how about for Ian Kennedy? What an issue that has been. Very strange to see that at 3:56, and then to see third time through actually be his best time through the order.
Wow, nice play by Herrera to at least give himself an opportunity to get Grossman. Infield single. I didn't think Herrera had a chance, but he is a taller second baseman. Extended that frame. Able to get the ball, but just not nearly enough time to get Grossman. Runs fairly well.
Yeah, he did a great job of getting around this ball and trying to give himself an opportunity. I think even at this point, he probably knew he didn't have a chance, but wanted to take a shot at it anyway. And that is the first hit for the Twins, as we were just talking about, that second time through the order. 1 for 4 so far, as Ian Kennedy is navigating his way through this Twins lineup a second time.
Here's Jake Cave. Cave drafted out of high school. He is from Hampton, Virginia. Traded from the Yankees chain back in April. There's lots to like. He's got a nice left-handed swing. Runs a little bit, can play all 3 outfield positions. He's actually a two-way recruit and a two-way draftee almost. Thinking was he had a chance to be a left-handed pitcher when he played pro ball. Throws that well.
That's usually the quickest way to be able to get to the big leagues, or certainly give yourself an opportunity. But this kid can hit. Watched him a few times now, and he's squared up some baseballs. It looks good. Right now, doing everything he possibly can to give the Twins and Paul Molitor the confidence to go ahead and pen him in, not pencil him in, but pen him in for a spot on next year's 25-man roster.
Probably won't be in center field. Center field, the thinking in Minneapolis is still the domain of Byron Buxton. But Buxton not with the team right now. Not his decision. Finishing out the rest of this September at his home. And in essence, it's just to save service time.
It is, and that's been a subject that's been talked about a lot, not just here with Minnesota, but around all of Major League Baseball. And teams, it is what it is. It's within the rules, right? We use the phrase and say, well, they manipulate the service time, but it is within the rules. And Byron Buxton was just short of 3 years service time. He needed just 13 days to get there. So if he had come up in September and they let him play and he gets his 13 days, I mean, even if he didn't play, as long as he's here and he's active, well, then he would have been over 3 years, which would have only given the Twins 3 more years of control. And it's been somewhat of a lost year for Byron Buxton, battling a lot of injuries. Had a great second half last year. It looked like he was finally going to live up to that promise, and it's kind of unfair. High expectations for this young man. He's had to battle some injuries along the way. Still very, very talented. Gold Glove caliber center fielder, without a doubt. The offense is starting to come around. He finished the season really strong in AAA, and Twins decided not to call him up, and the reality is that's the way they can control him for another 4 years. If he becomes the player that they still believe he can become, they'd like to be able to control him. We see it all the time on the other end with players to start their careers, right? Chris Bryant didn't get to the big leagues until the middle of April. Ronald Acuna Jr. did not make that opening day roster, even though he deserved it with the Atlanta Braves. Why? So that they could control him for 7 years instead of 6. In the union, Major League Baseball's Players Association, probably not happy about it. I understand that, but it also is within the rules.
I guess if you're a small market team like the Twins are thought to be, you're saying to yourself, if Buxton does become this superstar, we need him for as long as possible, because more often than not, he won't get his best offer from the Minnesota Twins when he becomes a free agent and open to sign anywhere. Maybe he would if he was Joe Mauer, born and raised in St. Paul. But if you're a guy like Buxton, who doesn't have that natural tie to the Twin Cities, maybe you just go to the highest offer. So Minnesota trying to protect whatever they can, as much service from Buxton as they can, choosing not to have him with the team and possibly alienating him for the years to come because of this decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that no doubt bothers a player, and it should bother a player, because you feel like you've done what you're supposed to do to deserve that call up at the end of the season, and that call didn't come. But the reality is there's nothing you can do about it. And so you can be angry, and that's okay. Just make sure it doesn't affect your career going forward.
Here's Astudillo. Remember, we told you his first time up. Has not swung and missed at a pitch in his last 27 plate appearances. Not saying he hasn't struck out, but he hasn't swung and missed. Elite bat to ball skills. Into center field. Routine. 2 down. Leadoff single by Grossman. He's still on at first. All right, just finishing off this conversation about service time and what could possibly happen. The next Pandora's box is going to be next spring, because the #1 minor league player, Baseball America's minor league player of the year, 19-year-old kid, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the Blue Jays chain. This guy is ready to go. If he is not opening the season as the everyday third sacker in Toronto, now that Josh Donaldson is gone, people are going to be wondering why. And I guess theoretically what you could do, he's only 19, as Guerrero, is instead of not going north of him, if you really felt your window to contend was multiple years down the road, theoretically you could keep him down in the minor leagues even past whatever the marker is in mid-May, when you couldn't possibly get a full year's service time.
Yeah.
Like, they could keep him in the minors all next year.
I don't think they'd keep him all next year. I think that would be doing a huge disservice to his development as a player. I think we'll see him in the middle of April. Most likely the reality is until they'll be able to control him for 7 years. What I find probably most fascinating about this whole situation is how do fans really feel? Like, if you went to Atlanta Braves fans right now and said, yeah, well, we could have had Ronald Acuna Jr. on opening day. We can only control him for 6 years. Or if you could just wait 2 weeks, we can guarantee that we'll have him for 7. What fan doesn't want that player there for 7 years, right? I mean, even though you want to see him now, Blue Jays fans want to see Guerrero Jr. now. But if you come back and say, listen, you get him for 7 years, can you just wait? They'd probably say yes. Kepler hits this one deep center field. Royals have a man there. Whit Merrifield runs it down. Side retired. I'm not going to beat the story. We're done with it. Chases October's crown. Major League Baseball postseason begins October 2nd. Go to MLB.com/postseason for the full schedule. Be here before you know it. Cleveland Indians clinching a postseason spot. Kind of a foregone conclusion, as the AL Central was not elite this year. That's putting it mildly. This was a tough division, and it wasn't expected to be this bad, but certainly the case. I think that kind of begs the question a little bit as far as how much divisional play we have, and is that fair now that we have 2 wild cards? It's not a knock on the Indians. They put a good roster together. But this was not much of a challenge for them at all when you basically have 4 teams in your division that have gone into a rebuild. They get to play each of those teams 19 times, where the Yankees will finish with more wins than the Cleveland Indians. They're going to have to fight in a wild card, a 1-game playoff.
Yeah, not a lot of people going to shed a tear for the Yankees.
Good point.
And the benefits that they have simply because of market size.
So let's go. Would you shed a tear for the Pirates because it happened to them in 2015? They had 98 wins and had to play in a wild card game.
Yes, I would.
You're right.
Yeah.
And that's where I think there's got to be some adjustments. And at some point we will get to 32 teams in the league, whether it's in the next couple of years, the next decade, and then maybe we would see a little bit more of a balanced schedule, possibly.
No, to me, if you're going to balance it out, you got to, if you're going to break it into different things, you got to do the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Because the Yankees and the Red Sox are playing different baseball than most of the teams in the American League. Bonifacio strikes out. For DeYoung, that is now strikeout number 4. And we're talking about what's going on in the American League. You got the Red Sox already over the century mark. Look at that. They're 55 games above 500.
It's a good example of it, though, right there, right? Look at the Indians. 15.5 game lead over the Twins. They win that division. The Yankees, 8 more wins, and they're 10.5 games back of first place Boston. That's tricky.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if there's any perfect answer.
The Indians didn't get an opportunity, along with basically every other team in baseball, to get a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, simply because they couldn't afford to pay him.
No doubt.
While the Yankees had zero sweat doing that because of their huge television contract, simply because of all the people who choose to live in their viewing area.
Sure. No, I think it's absolutely fair, and they do what they can with revenue sharing and trying to have that luxury tax threshold and everything else to balance it out as much as possible. There's no perfect solution, no two ways about it, but baseball is constantly working. Rob Manfred has talked about that this year, where this game eventually is heading and trying to balance things out. The issue you run into now is a lot of teams that we have seen, well, if you're not in it, then go ahead and get all the way out.
Yeah.
And you become a pretty bad team.
Herrera loops one into right field. 1-out single for Kansas City. Herrera on with pretty good speed. Maybe this is a running situation for Ned Yost.
That certainly could be. There's another changeup. You see the turnover and the good location, and for a lot of the contact against the DeYoung changeup tonight, it's just been off the end of the bat, not necessarily laced. That one was decently hit, but it was still an off-balance swing, which tells you that it's a good pitch. But it's one that is going to induce contact, and one that, for the Minnesota Twins, you're hoping that your opposing hitters are hitting that ball at guys.
Here's Escobar. RBI single his first time up. Alcides Escobar, now 31 years of age. He is from Venezuela. And oh, by the way, did you know he is related to one of the new hot things in Major League Baseball? He is cousins with Ronald Acuna Jr. There goes Herrera.
Wow.
And a great job of spoiling the pitch out by Escobar. I believe that was a pitch out, am I correct?
It was, and it was because the hit and run was on. And so I think for Escobar, he wasn't necessarily reacting to the fact that it was a pitch out, but it was a hit and run. And you see where the location of that pitch was? He did not get it out there nearly far enough. You see Astudillo almost reaching back a little bit. That ball needs to be in the left-hander's batter's box when you throw that pitch. When you throw a pitch out, you need to get it out there for that reason exactly. And had he gotten out a little bit further, it probably most likely is a swing and miss and a legitimate chance to throw your runner out.
Down the right field line, giving chase. Kepler can't make the play. It's a fair ball. Ball's rattling around in the corner and right. Being waved around is Herrera. And he'll make it standing. It's a 3-1 lead for Kansas City. Escobar another RBI.
Well, after fighting off that pitch out, he does an excellent job of going the other way for a second time tonight, does Escobar. And you look at this fastball, and it ends up splitting the middle. Late movement, but it came right back down the middle. And watch Escobar here. And you got some tricky corners here in Kansas City, right? The ball bounces and kind of kicks around. Really nice base running by Herrera. As soon as he sees that ball down, he knows he's going to have a chance to score, because look where the ball kicks, actually away from Kepler in that spot. It's an easy triple for Escobar, who probably wanted to at least maybe think about trying for the inside the park home run, as he was right behind Herrera. But a nice job all the way around by the Royals on the bases.
Cam Gallagher batting with the infield in. So bottom of the 4th inning, Twins already down by a pair. They had the infield in and the bullpen getting loose. Gabriel Moya, left-hander, getting loose. Gallagher, safety squeeze, and now they got Escobar to pickle. Oh, and it hits Escobar in the back. A run scores for the Royals. The troubles continue for Minnesota.
We were just talking about how the Royals still kind of do it old school, and they tried the squeeze. It wasn't the suicide squeeze, but the safety squeeze. You got to see the ball down before you take off, and this throw ran high, and then you get a situation where you try to rush that throw back off balance because of where it was, and not much of a throwing lane in that spot. And that's going to go down as an error for Paul Molitor. Just gets thrown out of the game.
Yeah, Paul's hot.
I'm not sure exactly what he's arguing, unless he's looking for interference from Gallagher on the throw. Of course, it's always on the hitter to make sure that he stays out of the way. If there was any contact there, we'll take a look here. Yeah, you see how he hesitated? I could see what Paul Molitor was going for. The problem was that in that situation, as the catcher, go ahead and make contact with the hitter. Then you'll get the call for interference. But he actually avoided the hitter. And because there was no contact, I'm trying to figure out exactly who all got thrown out here. It might be multiple Minnesota coaches that are going to get the rest of the evening off.
So Paul Molitor is done. He gets thrown out here in the bottom of the 4th inning.
I don't think he's the only one.
Just for the record, you were spot on once again. I've only done a handful of games with you, CJ Nikowski.
Give it time.
But
mess some stuff up.
But your interpretation was perfect. Interference is when the offense hinders the defensive team. Obstruction is when the defense hinders the base runner. Kane doesn't know where the ball is. Oh, that's going to drop. The comedy of errors continues for the Twins. A gift double for Cam Gallagher. And Chase DeYoung can't believe it.
Now, what a tough break, and we're not completely dark here in Kansas City, and so that always can be a little bit of an issue. You'd rather that sky be black than the current color that it is. It's not that he lost it in the lights. It goes from the lights to, I mean, we're beyond dusk, but it's not completely dark here, and the color of the sky is somewhat close to the color of a baseball, and so that was the issue. And Derek Shelton, now the bench coach, acting manager for the Minnesota Twins, is coming out and going to try to get things calmed down here for the Twins.
No, he's going to make a pitching change. Derek Shelton has already made the move to the bullpen. So we'll see the left-hander Moya when we return to Kansas City. Of the game, this call to the bullpen sponsored by Jim Beam. This will be the 28th appearance of the season, all but 2 out of the pen for Gabriel Moya.
Yeah, and those 2 starts, he was used as the opener, that trend that we're seeing where he would throw the first inning of the game and then go to your what was supposed to be starter that they refer to as an opener. It's been a pretty good year for him. 28 strikeouts in those 30 2/3 innings so far for Moya. He's got great numbers against lefties, just a 191 batting average against righties. He's done a very respectable job as well, 237 against the righties.
Moya from Cabimas, Venezuela. Originally property of the Arizona Diamondbacks, coming over to the Twins in a July trade a year ago. Whit Merrifield will get the first look at Moya. Merrifield's 3rd at bat.
And not exactly the matchup you're looking for. I mentioned good numbers for Moya against righties, but for Merrifield coming into this one hitting .355 against lefties.
Robust. Gallagher, the runner on at second. And the first pitch by Moya misses high. And bottom 3rd of the order. Get close to the cycle. A single by Herrera, a double by Escobar, a triple by Escobar, and a double by Gallagher. So what we need is a home run here by Merrifield, and we'll have the cycle in 4 batters. Not going to get that homer. Wow, nice play by Petit. Petit got that in the webbing somehow and throws out Merrifield. 2 down.
When we talk about third base being a reactionary position, and it is exactly that. And this was a great job by Petit. Just ball hard hit. 1 hop right to his left. Full extension. Fields it cleanly, hops up, makes a really nice strong throw. Watch it here. That is just straight reaction. It's like you're a hockey goalie down there. Good hands, gets the play made.
Looking like Gary Gaetti in his prime. Here's Mondesi trying to keep the inning alive. Couple of bounce outs for Mondesi.
When you look at Mondesi, and based on the conversation you and I had with Ned Yost earlier today, you just strictly looking at him, you might not think that what Ned Yost is telling us is true. He said legitimate 5-tool player. Now you think 5-tool player, you think Vladimir Guerrero, big guys that can hit for power, they can hit for average, they got an unbelievable arm, they can run, they can field. Like, that's where I would put a guy like Vlad Sr. Although he's not a senior, but Vlad Guerrero. But he doesn't look the part in the sense that he looks real big, but they're not surprised at all about the power. They said he has legit power. Ned Yost wouldn't throw that phrase around if he didn't mean it.
Well, his father was a 5-tool player. If you never had a chance to see,
yeah, but
Mondesi's
he looked the
father,
part, right? I mean, he was jacked.
He was stocky, yeah. Raul Mondesi played for the Dodgers, Rookie of the Year with the Dodgers back in the early 90s. Raul went by the nickname the Buffalo. But he could run, finished with over 200 homers. Into left field, that'll get down. Gallagher, the catcher, being stopped at 3rd as the ball gets away from 2 Twin defenders, but fortunately Moya where he was supposed to be.
Almost a 3rd. He got that, but that was pretty close. Because a lot of times as a pitcher, when you see that kind of throw that's low, as you're going to see the pitch here, and a nice job by Mondesi to get to this pitch. Good pitch located in. You see him pull those hands in and line this ball to left field. And the guy that has really good splits, both against lefties and righties, 271 against lefties, 293. But when you see this kind of throw as a pitcher, look where Moya is right now. He didn't actually see the throw. Now he sees it, and he feels pretty good about the fact that he's not going to have to be involved in this play, and he stops running, and it's probably a good thing he did. Had he lined himself up exactly where he was supposed to be, which is a straight line behind that throw in the catcher, he might not catch that ball, and it would have gotten past 3 Twins.
Here's Alex Gordon. Fastball, strike 1 to Gordon. He's really kind of one of the chosen ones off that 2015 World Series team that the Royals actually committed to. Mondesi on his way down to second. He'll make it without a throw. The Royals have played like that for a long time now. So 2 men in scoring position for Gordon.
Now this is an easy steal, and you can see the speed, as we mentioned, all the different talents of Alberto Mondesi.
Moya's 1-1. All right, CJ. Alex Gordon is a 3-time All-Star. He's done a lot of good things in the game. But this year, hitting just a .171 with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. Is that just luck of the draw, or is there enough of a sample size?
I think whenever you put the 2 outs on there, for me, it doesn't matter as much. I like the number of runners in scoring position overall. You're going to get way more plate appearances in those spots, and it also depends on where you're hitting in the order. Are they working around you? Are they making it pretty tough? So listen, you always want to see those numbers higher, but I don't know if it necessarily speaks to who he is overall. 258 with runners in scoring position. That's certainly a little bit better. Get that spot with 2 outs. But here's a good example. You have an open base. Even though it's left on left, you feel pretty confident that Moya would much rather face Gordon than he would Salvador Perez. Gordon hitting just 178 against those lefties this year, so he's going to go at him. But if it was a different kind of situation with a right-handed pitcher, he'd probably be a little bit more careful.
2-2. Yeah, with the year that Whit Merrifield is having, for the most part, always batting in front of Alex Gordon, you would think that Alex Gordon, now in 129 games, would have more than 43 runs batted in.
A full year of Merrifield and Mondesi in front of you definitely should yield a lot of RBI opportunities. Next year, they'll see that combination most likely regarding, unless they make any major roster changes. That'll be a good top of the order.
3-2. That's a base hit. Extra bases for Gordon. It'll score a pair. Gallagher, Mondesi score. It's a 2-out, 2-run double for Alex Gordon. Throw the numbers out the window.
Whenever you get a lefty who is good on lefties, you have to be ready for these kind of pitches. That's a good fastball from Moya, located down and away, and your best chance is going to try to take that lefty the other way that Alex Gordon just did it right there. It's a smart approach. Be short to the ball. Try to punch it the other way. You try to get too big, you're going to pull off that ball and roll over it. And even though it's been a little bit of a rough go of it for Alex Gordon, especially against lefties, that's a veteran at bat in a big spot.
Lead is 6-1. Perez, first ball swinging, smothered. Adrianza. And out number 3 is recorded at first. But the lead now swells to 5. You by Hankook Tire. Chase down your passion, never halfway. And by Old Dominion, helping the world keep promises. The CJ Nikowski, Eric Collins. We're now in inning number 5. Locals feeling good. Kansas City on top of Minnesota 6-1. Ian Kennedy breezing through the first 4. Gave up 1 run. That was back in the 2nd inning. 2-out RBI single by Adrianza. Should be a 2-out, 2-pitch out. Adrianza is out number 1.
Good job by Ian Kennedy. Come out throwing strikes after his team just spots him 4. It's kind of interesting to watch. We talk about making adjustments, and here's the fastball percentage usage. I should say all the pitches and the usage, but check out the curveballs at 34% for Ian Kennedy. If you remember in the beginning of the game, we had told you that he has used that pitch 18% of the time. So significant jump in usage on the curveball tonight for Ian Kennedy, and we'll see that in teams with the data that is available and understanding lineups and what pitches they are weaker against. Obviously for Ian Kennedy, he knew that he'd be better off using his curveball nearly twice as much as he has been all season, and it's been effective.
Gregorio Petit slaps this one into right field. Had a lot of spin on it. Bonifacio fortunate that ball didn't get underneath his glove. That was a single with big league spin on it.
Yeah, ball was hit pretty hard. It was a cutter that was left up and away. You'll see it here. And you see the elevation almost out of the zone, and that's a nice job by Petit to get on top of that ball and square it up and hit it pretty hard out to right field. And you see it there. Look at that little bounce. Almost made it look like the grass was wet, which it's not.
So back to the top of the order, and Joe Mauer. Mauer 1 for 2, double to begin this game, and lined out to center. Former American League MVP back in 2009. Number 1 overall pick way back when. Out of a St. Paul high school, same high school that produced Paul Molitor. In fact, one of Paul Molitor's old high school teammates at Cretan Durham Hall High School was also Joe Mauer's head coach.
That's pretty amazing. And pretty cool for that high school, of course, to a couple of tremendous big leaguers, a Hall of Famer, another maybe borderline. That's the other thing for Joe Mauer. If he cares about that kind of stuff, would he want to stick around? Would he try to make that run? There are guys that have done that. That's the reality for some players, that they will play into their 40s. And even though the talent level comes down, they start reaching some of those markers that say automatically put you in, but give you a really good chance at getting into the Hall of Fame.
There's got to be someone out there wondering, geez, Paul Molitor and Joe Mauer, same high school. Are they the high school teammates or high school alums in the same school that have the most hits in the history of Major League Baseball combined? Well, they're maybe farther down on the list than you'd think. There's a high school in Pennsylvania, Denora Senior High School, Denora, Pennsylvania, that produced not only Stan the Man Musial, 3,600 hits himself, but also Ken Griffey Sr.
Wow.
Who had close to 2,100 hits.
So is that the unofficial leader?
Unofficial leader in the clubhouse, yes.
Nice.
You've also got McClymonds High School out in Oakland, California. Produced both Frank Robinson and Veda Pinson, two elite players back in the 50s and 60s. A whole bunch of hits there. And the last one we'll bring up just because it's got a Twins connection. From the Bronx, not too far from where you grew up, George Washington High School produced both Rod Carew, after he was born in Panama but was raised in New York City, and Manny Ramirez.
Wow.
Both went to George Washington High School in the Bronx.
So I wonder about combined hits, though, because you brought this high school up earlier, not just for the two, but maybe, and this would be nearly impossible to do, but just total hits that came out of high schools, because you mentioned Cincinnati.
Yes, Cincinnati Moeller.
Yeah,
big one.
Archbishop Malloy, right? Is that? Oh no, I'm sorry, Moeller. Yeah. Sorry,
Archbishop Malloy is in New York.
Yep,
it's Kenny Anderson and Robert Wordan and a lot of basketball players.
So the guys that you were talking about, Griffey Jr.
Sure.
And
Barry Larkin.
Yeah.
But also the Bells went there too.
I was going to say, Buddy Bell has more hits than Barry Larkin.
Oh.
Buddy Bell had 2,514 hits.
Buddy Bell had that many hits.
That's what I'm reading right now.
He was.
David Bell had 1,200 hits. So now you take those four guys, there's no way. There's no way a high school's produced more hits.
Pete Rose's son, Pete Rose Jr., went to Moeller as well. I don't think he had nearly as many hits as his dad did, and his dad did not go to Moeller. His dad is a different high school in the Cincinnati area. Here's Logan Forsythe after the walk to Joe Mauer. Runners on at first and at second. Twins trying to get back into this game.
They got to have the home runs over 1,000. They have to, right?
That's a whole bunch.
It's a big project. I mean, well over 1,000. Probably closer to 1,200.
Well, wherever, yeah. Barry Bonds went to Serra High School out in, I think, San Mateo, out close to San Francisco. So he's got over 700 himself. Tom Brady went to the same high school, so did Willie Swan. I don't think they had any homers, though.
Well, they don't count anyway, right?
You know, Greg Jeffries did, though, I think, though. I think Greg Jeffries went to the same high school as Barry Bonds. And Jeffries had probably 200 homers or so. All right, getting back to this one. Logan Forsythe, big opportunity, but he's going to have to work. He's down in the count 0-2. Petit and Mauer on in front of him. Oh, good bit of hitting by Forsythe. That'll be a base hit. That'll drive in Petit. Around third, heading home. Mauer on his way to third. And the Twins get a little bit closer. It is now a 6-2 game as Forsythe picks up his 25th run batted in.
We're just talking about the breaking ball and the usage of the breaking ball for Ian Kennedy. It's a pretty good one right here. 79 miles per hour at the bottom of the zone, but you see that short swing from Logan Forsythe and just serving this thing out to right field in a big spot with a couple of runners on, and the Twins are starting to make their move.
Well, the Twins doing it for their skipper. Paul Molitor was ejected last half inning. Also ejected Gene Glynn, who had been the third base coach. So Gene Glynn is no longer at third base. It's now Jeff Smith who moves over. He had been the first base coach. Rudy Hernandez is calling the shots down the first base line. There's Jeff Smith. And there's Rudy Hernandez. Not only do the rosters expand in September, but certainly the coaching staffs expand in September.
And you're ready for these kinds of things. You have to have a backup third base coach. You have to have a backup first base coach. Of course, the bench coach usually slides over and takes over for the manager. As you see Derek Shelton right there doing that job. These are all the contingency plans that you have in place that you may have to use one or no times over the course of the season.
High pop-up off the bat of Rosario. It won't be deep enough to score Mauer. 2 outs.
So that is some kind of wormhole that you opened up with the internet, and you could waste hours looking at high schools and trying to compare guys. But you mentioned Barry Bonds' high school, and you're right. Jeffries went there. Greg Jeffries hit 126 home runs. You know who else went there? Jim Fregosi.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
The old California Angel.
151 home runs for him, but they're not going to catch Archbishop Moeller. They're not going to get there.
That's one of the great things about baseball. There's no better sport to prepare for than baseball. As you look at high schools and colleges and draft areas, there's so much that's intertwined in this great game. Here's Robbie Grossman. Grossman swings at the first pitch and launches it to straightaway center. Whit Merrifield makes the play. So Ian Kennedy limits the damage. innings. He is in line to pick up the win if the Royals can hold off the Twins. Follow the race to the postseason on MLB TV for $25.99. Watch every out-of-market regular season game, plus get a free subscription to MLB at Bat Premium. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv to take advantage of this limited time offer. New pitcher Zach Littell comes in.
You see the numbers there for the righty. Just 5th game for him this year. High ERA, 6 strikeouts to 7 walks. Certainly something he would like to see turned around a little bit. He's got a fastball that sits at 92 miles an hour. The cutter at 87. You'll also see a curveball and a changeup.
Littell facing Ryan O'Hearn. O'Hearn, the happiest guy in Kansas City that chased DeYoung, is out of the game. He struck out twice against DeYoung, both times swinging. O'Hearn was not having an elite season at the minor league level this year, but the Royals not necessarily paying attention to numbers, but having access to exit velocity, even at the minor league level. They thought that his old school numbers across the board, his batting average, his power numbers, were not indicative of the year he was having, the way he was swinging the bat, because of his exit velocities. And that earned him the call up, and he's produced since coming to the big league level.
Well, I think the modern player just has to absolutely love that teams do that, because there are times where the numbers, the traditional numbers, don't tell the story. And it's frustrating when you're a player and you're sitting there in the minor leagues and your team is not watching you every day, right? They're only getting the reports. And the report, 10 years ago would have said, hey, square the ball up, but they see 0 for 4. A couple of hard hit balls, but they turned into outs. And you're sitting there and you're going through your season. I was like, man, I know I'm hitting the ball hard, just I'm not getting any breaks right now. Nothing is falling in. Well, now the team could just look that up and say, yeah, listen, you're averaging 96 miles an hour, whatever it may be on your exit velocity, and we don't care that you're hitting 220. We know that that's happening. And so now you have your organization with the ability to back up what you know is true. And then, listen, the opposite can also take place, where you may be hitting 320 with off flares.
Yeah.
And they know that. And I got to believe for players, there's some good and there's some bad in all that data that's available. But that's a good example of where it's really worked out in a player's favor.
Jorge Bonifacio, 1 for 2. Ball and 2 strikes.
I wonder too, as an organization, like, you got to beat your chest a little bit when you do that. You take that chance where the rest of the league might be looking at you going, what? You're calling this guy up? He hit 232 in AAA with 11 home runs and 406 plate appearances. He gets to the big leagues. He hits 10 home runs and 106 at bats.
Bonifacio, a totally different player than his brother Emilio. Emilio was a put the ball in play and run like heck type of guy. Bonifacio, big, burly. Doesn't have the power numbers this year that he had a season ago. This year, just 3 homers for Bonifacio, but last year had 17 bombs. 17 bombs in 113 games. This year, 3 homers in 56. This has never been a particularly easy ballpark to hit home runs. It's gotten better over the years. Used to be historically hard to get it over the fence.
Good triples ballpark because of the gaps, and also mentioned the corners as well. And you saw it already earlier tonight with Alcides Escobar, the way that the ball, if an outfielder goes for it, or even if he doesn't, it could be a tough outfield to play, at least in the corners, for visiting teams. If you're not familiar with those bounces, that ball could take off and rattle around the corner or head back to center field. It's a great place for triples, but you're right. And you look around the division here, Detroit, think about Chicago, Minnesota, not great ballparks to hit home runs in. And so if you're building your team, or you're building your roster, and you're an American League Central team, high launch angle guys might not be the way you want to go. Outside of Cleveland, Cleveland's a good ballpark to hit in for home runs, but the rest of them in this division are not. A lot of home runs to be lost. Fly ball pitchers, good fits. That's why Ian Kennedy on paper was a good fit here with the Kansas City Royals.
Bonifacio strikes out. 2 outs here in the bottom of the 5th inning. And one of the really, really cool factoids, bits of trivia in the world of baseball, something that I've always loved. The Royals, one of only 2 franchises where the all-time leader in franchise history in both hits, doubles, triples, and home run is the same exact guy. Pretty easy. It's George Brett. The only other major league team, active major league team, that has the same guy, the all-time leader in hits, doubles, triples, and homers, it's not the Rockies. It is also in the state of Missouri.
Oh, wow.
Just gave it away.
Really? Yeah, that's kind of interesting, I think, because you wouldn't look at that ballpark in St. Louis and think, okay, well, you know, you could do one or the other. You're not going to be able to do both.
Stan Musial.
Yeah.
George Brett and Stan Musial, the only 2 men to be their franchise all-time leader in all of those stats. There's George Brett. Man.
Triples are the one, right? The doubles and home runs, sure, but the triples are the one that really get.
And a lot of the old-time franchises, obviously St. Louis is one, but a lot of the older franchises like the Yankees and the Giants and the Dodgers, their triples leader is always someone from the dead ball era who was just hitting them where they ain't and running like heck. Herrera to the right side. Forsythe throws out his opposite number. Sides retired. Royals lead 6-2. For the Kansas City Royals, Ian Kennedy looking for win number 2 on the year. Limited time because of injuries, but just 1-8 is the record for Ian Kennedy. This is a guy who won 21 games, led the National League in wins back in 2011. Jake Cave leading things off for the Twins. He'll be followed by Astudillo and Max Kepler. Hard down the right field line. Foul.
He was talking about Ian Kennedy and that record and some of the struggles to get that win. And as much as maybe the sabermetric community talks about wins and does it matter, well, it does for pitchers. And he hasn't won since April 7th. That's 17 starts without a win for Ian Kennedy. And starting pitchers still like seeing that W next to their name. Now, of course, he missed some time with that left oblique. Came back probably a little bit too early. Pitched 1 game. Came off the DL, went right back on the DL, and this is now just his 2nd start since that 2nd DL stint.
Where do you stand with Jacob DeGrom, Mets right-hander, who is gunning for the ERA title, whose 1-loss record is right around the 500 mark. Is he 8-8 currently, or is he 8-9?
I think he's 8-9, but for me, it's his award to lose at this point. Max Scherzer had a real rough one the other night. I guess it was yesterday. where he gave up, I think it was 6 runs. So DeGrom, for me, he's 8-9 right now with a 1.71 ERA. Stay hot.
All right, CJ, but you pitched in the big leagues for a long time. To a certain extent, don't you have to pitch to your lead? Cave strikes out number 1. Obviously, you want yourself. We'll get back to that in a moment. Well, this week on Thursday Night Football, Sam Darnold and the Jets taking on the Browns exclusively on the NFL Network. And starting in week 4, Fox becomes the new network home to Thursday Night Football, when the Vikings battle the Rams. 1 out. Williams Astudillo is the batter. All right, CJ. Feet to the fire.
Yeah.
You have to pitch to your lead to a certain extent. Getting yourself in a position to win the ERA title is great. But as a starting pitcher, you got to go as long, or at least have to be in the game long enough to get yourself involved in the decision. Astudillo, line drive single, and he is aboard with 1 out.
Yeah, sure, you'd like to be. But at the same time, for Jacob deGrom, I mean, listen, the innings are pretty close between him and Max Scherzer. There's not a big difference, which sometimes I think that does matter, but I think it's maybe 1 start difference as far as the total innings, and the numbers to me are just starting to separate themselves too much. The ERA is significant now, and the ERA is not everything. The strikeouts are really close. Scherzer's the better strikeout pitcher, but not by much. I think it's 1 strikeout per 9. The walk rate is a little bit better for Jacob deGrom, and he had that streak. I think it's 26 games now where it's been less than 3 runs per. I mean, it's just been incredible. Now, his run support is a full 2 runs lower than what Max Scherzer's gotten this year. It's about 3.5 to 5.5. That's pretty significant. I think that's part of the reason we got away from wins.
Kepler hits it well to right field. Bonifacio makes the play. Oh, he got a great read on that. Hell bent for leather back to the fence and robs Kepler of extra bases.
Frustrating for Max Kepler, but a very nice play in right field by Bonifacio. And talked about all the room that you have out here, and there's a lot of acreage here at Kauffman Stadium, and you see that jump, feet moving right away. Great read on it, reaches up and catches his ball just as he's getting to that warning track, as he timed that lead perfectly. A nice play, because that's at least 2 and potentially 3 depending on what kind of bounce that might have taken off the wall.
There are now 2 outs. Astudillo still on at first. Adrianza showing bunt. Ball 1. So 30 years from now, if deGrom does indeed win the ERA title, 30 years from now, if both Jake deGrom and Ian Kennedy find themselves in a bar together, who puffs out their chest more? Ian Kennedy for leading the National League in wins in 2011, or Jacob deGrom winning the ERA title in 2018? What's the better accomplishment as a former pitcher?
That's a good one. The ERA is probably more indicative of how your year went and how you did. Yeah, that's probably where I would go, but the wins are nice to have. I mean, anytime you get 20+ wins, that's a big deal. It's a tough one, but if it comes with the Cy Young Award, and that feels pretty good. That's a nice trophy. I'm not a big trophy guy. That's a nice one, though. That's a nice one to have.
Adrianza, 1 for 2 with the run batted in. Takes up high. It's been an interesting career for the pitcher Ian Kennedy. He was 21-4 in 2011, leading the National League in wins when he was a Diamondback. But overall in his career, he is well below 500 in his decisions. He's 92-100 wins and losses.
How about this? I was thinking about this same thing. As you mentioned, you start doing that research, and of course he started his career with the Yankees. Didn't pitch very much with the New York Yankees, just 14 total games, 12 starts. But in 2009, he pitched 1 game for the New York Yankees. Threw 1 inning, a couple of walks, a strikeout, didn't allow a run, but just the 1 appearance that he had. He probably has a 2009 World Series ring. How about that?
Yeah, cool.
And as long as you make an appearance on the roster,
yeah,
you're going to get a ring. He pitched 1 game. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty confident he has that ring.
Ground out ends the inning. Ian Kennedy has now made it through 6. Royals on top of the Minnesota Twins, bottom of the 6th inning. Manage your dream team in franchise mode, plus get weekly stats, roster updates, and more. RBI Baseball 18 is available now. Learn more at rbigame.com. Rated E for everyone. Zach Littell still on the mound for Minnesota. He replaced Gabriel Moya, who replaced Chase DeYoung. Third pitcher of the night for the Twins. Alcides Escobar leads things off for Kansas City. Perfect night so far for the veteran. RBI single in the second, RBI triple in the fourth. Side arming lefty Tim Hill. The bullpen for Kansas City. I know he's left-handed, but anytime you see someone going that side for Kansas City, you think you're Dan Quisenberry, right?
Of course. That uniform on.
Escobar out number 1. That's the second strikeout for Littell.
So how about this? I don't even know if I can trust this sheet anymore. So we get these game sheets, of course, scorecards, got the rosters listed, and it's September, and so I like to double check a little bit more with those bullpens. They get so ridiculously deep. And I'm looking at this right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. So I'm looking at about 13 relievers that are listed for the Twins. Neither of the guys that have pitched so far tonight were even on the list. Why do I even use this thing? That's how many pitchers you can carry in September.
Oh, nice bit of handwork there by Adrianza, but the throw work is not so great. That'll be a base runner for Kansas City. Let's see how that one scored. That was a nice play by Adrianza in the hole, but his throw airmailed the first baseman Mauer.
You see the ruling there. It's going to go down as a hit, and it was a really nice play to begin with. Hard hit ball, good hands, and looked like he had plenty of time. You see him looking at the ball and got his feet set, so it wasn't that it was an off-balance throw. And so that becomes interesting that they gave him a hit on this, right? I mean, plenty of time to make the throw.
That's E6 to me.
Yeah, they gave him a hit. How about that?
Yeah, all the credit in the world for stopping that smash. But with a catcher getting down that line, that should have been out number 2. But instead, it's a base runner. And back to the top of the order, and Whit Merrifield. 4th plate appearance for the 29-year-old. College World Series hero back in 2010 for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He was the cock of the walk. His game-winning base hit, championship series of the College World Series back in 2010. Must have been pretty cool for him too, as he stalled in the Kansas City Royals chain. Their minor league affiliate at the AAA level is the Omaha Storm Chasers. His money must have been no good when he was going out to breakfast in Omaha.
You would think so.
Of course, the College World Series every single year is played in Omaha, Nebraska.
So that for him, was that at Rosenblatt, or was that the new stadium you think he played at then?
It was 2010. So
pretty close. That's
yeah.
Rosenblatt, right? I think that was the older one.
I'm not sure. My guess would be yes, and
yeah,
our ace talent stats maven Chucky Kemp here in the booth says yes. He would know.
And that's when the AAA affiliate and the College World Series would share the ballpark, which was a little bit inconvenient if you were on that AAA team, because you had to go on the road for 2 weeks during the College World Series, which would be tough. And that old ballpark played really small. Made my first AAA start in that ballpark. Really small park. And
would that have been the old American Association?
1995, yeah.
Yeah, back then when there was 3 AAA leagues. Now there's just 2, the International League and the Pacific Coast League. Merrifield is fooled, goes down to 1 knee, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
But a great place to hit home runs. Of course, that Warren Morris home run for LSU. It was a great moment.
Yes.
He didn't hit it very far. Former teammate, great guy, great moment for him. But that was the ballpark. And there's that new ballpark now. Was a TD Ameritrade.
It is right in downtown Omaha,
where the AAA team does not play there. It's just Creighton plays their home games there, and then it's built for the College World Series. It is beautiful. And the Royals are playing there next year against the Detroit Tigers. You know, baseball's doing all these initiatives and playing games in different places. That's going to be a cool moment for the people of Omaha, Nebraska.
I'm being told that the very last College World Series played at Old Rosenblatt was
What's the last one?
2010
Okay.
when Whit Merrifield in South Carolina won the whole ball of wax.
Because the Storm Chasers, they played a different ballpark. Right?
Yes.
They don't play at TD. It is TD Ameritrade, right?
It is TD, at least it was.
It's beautiful. Called the Creighton game there. A little bit of a different feel when you go there for the College World Series, and then when Creighton has a home game there as far as the crowd goes.
3 balls and 2 strikes to Merrifield. And I'll talk about 6 degrees of separation in baseball. I actually have done a game at TD Ameritrade Stadium before, and I did it with that man. Cal Eldred
Really?
used to be a TV guy. Now he's the pitching coach for the Kansas City Royals and doing a wonderful job. Everyone's in love with what Cal's doing, but I spent 3.5 hours of my life sitting next to Cal Eldred and talking ball in Omaha.
He enjoyed it so much you drove him to coaching.
That's right. He said, I'm out of here. I'm not going to listen to a wacko like you talk about people's high schools and all that nonsense. Yeah, good at bat for Whit Merrifield. He saw the entire repertoire and the kitchen sink from Littell, and he is aboard with a 1-out walk. So Gallagher on in front of him. Merrifield is the most disappointed man here in Kansas City because he's thinking stolen base crown, and with Gallagher dropping the anchor in front of him, stolen bases will be hard to come by for Merrifield this time around.
So you could take your high school home run deal and then turn it into maybe college teams or College World Series appearances that had the best big league careers. Jackie Bradley Jr., Sam Dyson were on that team with Whit Merrifield.
Sure, yes. They had a wonderful pitcher. Was it Roth? Matt Roth? He was an angel for a heartbeat. Michael Roth was an angel for a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Here's Mondesi. Ned Yost telling us he believes he's got the most power of anyone on the big league roster currently for Kansas City. Also said that he thinks that before it's all said and done, he will steal between 60 and 80 bases in a season. That's a huge number. 80 stolen bases. That was prevalent back in the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
But no one does that in 2 seasons nowadays.
I'd love to see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
Cue shot. Uh-oh. Indecision. Petit gets the out at first, and he's fortunate to do that. Probably should have just turned around and touched third if he was looking for just 1 out.
Well, he was thinking 2 off the bat, but there was some hesitation. Now, it was either because he wasn't sure who was covering or the way that they were covering. Check, this will be a good look at it right here. This is what he saw, and as he looks down, look, there's nobody there, and you see 2 guys converging at once, and that's what caused the hesitation. And you just go ahead and you play it safe and you take your 1 out. But he was thinking 2 the entire way.
But as the brain works, you never just think to turn around and either touch the runner coming by or...
Because the ground ball took him just slightly to his left, you take your momentum and go ahead, because you don't want to miss the tag and then try to throw off balance. And it should have been a double play. Even though Mondesi can run, there's a pretty good chance if you turn it right away that you're going to get that double play or it's going to be close, and that's your first instinct. But the way that the defense was set up for the shortstop in that spot, Adrianza, he wasn't comfortable making that throw. It was almost like he was going to have to throw it on the run. So he took the sure out.
Alex Gordon, 2 for 3. Probably had the biggest hit of the game last time up. A 2-out, 2-run double in the 4th inning. Exact same situation this time around. Runners on at 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs for Gordon. Oh, the exact same result. Identical. 2 runs will score. Gordon steaming to 2nd. He's done it again. Yet another 2-out, 2-run double for Gordon.
A couple of incredible at-bats with runners in scoring position and doing it in big spots as Alex Gordon. Let's take you through both of these. Here's the first one against the lefty Moya. Really nice job on a tough pitch. Fastball and down and away, and just slices that thing right down the left field line. And then he gets an opportunity right now, this time against a righty, but the same approach. Short to the ball. Go ahead and take it to left field, go the other way, and pick up 2 more RBIs and call it now 5 on the night for Alex Gordon. There it is right there for 5 RBIs on the evening.
3-hit night for Gordon. Here's Salvador Perez. CJ, we were talking earlier in the game with Gordon at the plate about the shifts against him and all those guys on the right side of the infield. Now a couple of extra base hits to the opposite field. Perez takes outside 2-0. You see that number 13 he wears proudly. Through the years, Venezuelans have always revered the number 13. Started with Davey Concepcion, the many-time All-Star shortstop for the Cincinnati Reds. Omar Vizquel, Ozzie Guillen, all Venezuelans who wore 13.
You see Salvador Perez taking that fastball. You mentioned he swings a lot of pitches outside the zone. That is what O swing percentage means. These are the leaders in Major League Baseball. 50% of the time, Salvador Perez is swinging at pitches out of the zone. There's the rest of the group. And there's a couple of good hitters in there. Javier Baez is an MVP candidate, but very aggressive on pitches outside of the zone. So when you throw one that's borderline, say a good slider right now in this situation, and he doesn't swing at it, drives you crazy as a pitcher. You're like, wait a minute, that's not what the numbers say. The numbers say you're going to chase more than anybody in the game. Why didn't you swing at that one? It can be frustrating when a guy like Salvador Perez shows some patience.
Six-time All-Star. That pitch was high and out of the strike zone. Perez swings at it, and it'll be out number 3. Grossman makes the play, but Alex Gordon does it again. The lead is back to 6.
I'm going to show you the strikeouts first on the changeup. There's an elevated fastball at 93 miles an hour. The breaking ball below the zone, and then a well-painted fastball at 93 down and away. 6 innings, 6 hits, couple of runs. Just one of those was earned for Ian Kennedy, who is in line for the win. We talked about that winless streak. It has been since April. See his last one a game, and things looking pretty good for him right now. Good night overall for the right-hander.
New pitcher, Tim Hill. Sidewinding lefty from Sylmar, California. Only organization he's ever known is Kansas City Royal organization, drafted in the 32nd round in 2014 out of an Oklahoma junior college.
He can be a really uncomfortable at bat for lefties. Now you see a lot of side armors, and more often than not they don't throw particularly hard, and it's not that it's high velocity necessarily for Tim Hill, but the fastball's average 91, and when you're coming from that angle, that's a different look. And he's been kind of effectively wild. You saw the 14 walks, so it's not a high walk rate, but there are some times where pitches will get away from him. Not surprising, he's done a really nice job against lefties this year, hitting just 217. Righties hitting 271 against a sidearm lefty.
2 balls and a strike. Gregorio Petit. 2-2. After Petit, back to the top of the order. Joe Mauer, Logan Forsythe. Oh, Tim Hill, how do you do? Self-preservation, out number one.
You see the look there from Tim Hill, and I'll tell you all you need to know, which is he probably realizes he got a little lucky there, because it is about self-defense at this point. Watch where he finishes where his glove is. He didn't have to move very much, and it probably was really helpful that he's a side armor compared to how low he finished to, say, maybe a guy who throws over the top. And a big exhale there, and a sigh of relief from Tim Hill, and continuing to exhale and get that out of his system. Those will shake you up a little bit, but a nice play.
Doesn't have nearly as good of a story as you do about the time that Molitor hit you in the thigh. So Petit out number one. Joe Mauer bats for the fourth time. Officially 2 at bats for Joe. A double, a line out, and a walk. Interesting note about Joe Mauer, only 4 catchers in the history of Major League Baseball have won batting titles. 2 of them are active. Buster Posey out in San Francisco. I guess he's not too active. He's injured and out for the rest of the year, but obviously still in the middle of his career. Why is it so hard for catchers to win batting titles? It's just all the squatting, the heavy lifting.
Sure, that wear and tear over the course of the season, and trying to battle through and having the same strength, your legs underneath you as it gets late in the year. It's an exhausting position. Hey, listen, it's really, if you can't hit, that's when you should catch. If you can hit, don't catch.
Foul tipped into the catcher's glove. Hill strikes out Mauer. The MLB at Bat mobile app brings every baseball moment to your favorite devices. Catch every moment with features such as live radio broadcasts, the MLB.TV game of the day, pitch tracking, in-game highlights, stats, news, and more. Download MLB at Bat today. It's your #1 app for live baseball. Logan Forsythe. Forsythe with something on the line. Obviously the Twins have been eliminated earlier today. The Cleveland Indians clinching the AL Central, but guys like Logan Forsythe trying to figure out where 2019 will take him. He is a free agent at the end of the year. And like Joe Mauer, thinking about possibilities. Forsythe a little bit younger than Mauer. He's 31 years of age. He's been around San Diego, Tampa Bay, earlier this year out in LA. Has not had the season he would have liked in his walk year.
No, not what we're used to seeing from him. 235 overall. The last couple of years, the numbers have come down a little bit. He's had some good seasons. Go back to 2015, 2016, when he hit 17 and 20 home runs respectively. And this is also a guy that plays good defense, well-respected glove.
Oh, serendipity. That'll be an infield base hit for Forsythe. He says, where's that been all season long? Obviously the bag in fair territory. 2-out single for Forsythe.
He'll take it any way that you can get it for Logan Forsythe. And now it's back-to-back hits in his last 2 at-bats. But this would have been a tough play, but one that might have been made. Forsythe does not run particularly well, so had Escobar come up with that, would have been a decent chance that he could have thrown him out.
So Eddie Rosario will bat with 2 outs. Off the first baseman's glove. So 2 fortuitous at bats in a row for Minnesota, and runners are on at the corners. 1 hit off a base, 1 hit off a glove.
It's good contact from Rosario going up against a really tough lefty with that low arm angle. Now they were trying to go down and away, and you see how that pitch ended up missing in, but that doesn't mean that swing is any more comfortable. That pitch was never in the strike zone. For Rosario to stay on it and still square it up, Gives you a good idea of what the concentration was like. You get in against these kind of lefties, and they can really mess you up if you're not careful. That's a nice job by Rosario, who has hit lefties well this year. 272 coming into tonight.
Big at bat for Robbie Grossman. Twins trying to inch back into this one. Grossman, a switch hitter, hits from the right side for the first time. Now, just in case Kevin McCarthy getting loose in the Royals pen. Can't imagine he'd come in anytime soon. The guy on deck for Minnesota is Jake Cave, who is a left-handed swinger. Little number. Gallagher makes the play. Side retired. Welcome back. We've reached the bottom of the 7th inning with C.J. Nitkowski, Eric Collins, Ryan O'Hearn grabs a bat for Kansas City. They lead the Twins by 6. After O'Hearn, Bonifacio and Herrera to bat against Zach Littell, third pitcher of the night for Minnesota. O'Hearn with those 10 homers since being called up from AAA.
You mentioned how they looked into some of the exit velocity, even though the overall numbers weren't there. Batting average, on base percentage. I wonder if you asked the Royals if they said, "Oh, no, we're even surprised by that." The fact that he's hit 10 already.
Strikes out does O'Hearn. That's the 3rd time he has struck out this evening. Here's tonight's game summary, sponsored by Budweiser. A combined 10 runs so far here in the bottom of the 7th inning. Alex Gordon has driven in 5 of the combined 10. He has had a night and a half, 3 for 4 with a couple of 2-run doubles. And Ian Kennedy is in line to pick up his first win in a month of Sundays. Just 1-8 on the year is Ian Kennedy. Last win was in April. Bonifacio down in the count 0-1.
The last time we've seen Alex Gordon drive in that many runs, you got to go all the way back to 2014 in May.
Oh my goodness.
It's 6 RBI against the Baltimore Orioles. So it's been a while. It's been an offensive struggle for him.
Little flare. This may drop. Nope. Kepler makes it look routine. Das gut.
I thought it was dropping. The body language got me too. I was like, well, he's not going to get there. He's running after it. He's giving his best effort, but you never saw the glove really come up, or you see any of the body language that tells you he was going to lay out. Watch him right here. Just, yeah. Even right there. Barely had to move the glove.
Max Kepler, part of that core for Minnesota. Plays a mean right field. First ball swinging. Herrera, his second hit of the night. 2-out single for Herrera, takes a wide turn, and he'll remain on at first.
Fastball right down the middle, two-seamer with a little bit of action. Nice job by Herrera to get a good swing on it. And then, you know, under normal circumstances, I won't say that's a routine ground ball to second, but because they're shaded a little bit, no chance for Forsythe to get to that one.
Here's Escobar. Couple of hits, couple of runs batted in. Alcides Escobar's best season in his career, without a doubt, was in 2015, that magical year here at Kauffman Stadium. His only All-Star appearance was in 2015, also won a Gold Glove. All right, it's now all said and done. The dust is settled. The Royals won the Zach Greinke trade, right? Zach Greinke and Yuniesky Betancourt going to Milwaukee in exchange for Lorenzo Cain, Alcides Escobar. Not only wonderful years from Escobar and Cain, but also a World Series, right?
Yeah, I think the ring probably puts it over the top. It's not to say that Zach Greinke hasn't gone on to have a really good career. He has, and he probably needed to get out of Kansas City, but it's hard to argue with the production you've gotten from both of those guys. And anytime you can put a ring on top of it, and they were big players in that ring, and they were, I think it's pretty safe to say you feel pretty good about that deal, and you do it 10 times out of 10.
Escobar flips that out of play, and talk about clutch performers. Escobar was the 2015 ALCS MVP. The year prior, 2014, it was Lorenzo Cain who was the ALCS MVP.
Yeah, that helps a little bit as far as kind of putting that stamp on whether or not they won that trade. And Lorenzo Cain right now is in the MVP conversation in the National League.
Hard and fair down the left field line. This will be interesting. Herrera can fly. He's making it around third. He's being waved. Here comes the throw. No. Adrianza puts it in his back pocket. It is a run-scoring double for Escobar, and the lead is now 9-2.
This gives you an idea of the speed of Herrera, who at one point hesitated a little bit. Here's a breaking ball, and one that finished middle in. They were trying to go middle away with that pitch, and he's able to hit it down the left field line. But this grass ate this ball off. Watch Herrera. He's still looking, and he kind of looked like he slowed up. You see it right there, the hesitation. Wasn't expecting maybe to get waved around, and he still scores easily on that double.
Third time tonight that Kansas City has had a 2-out double scoring a run. Base hit for Gallagher, and Escobar will walk home. Royals have hit double digits. RBI single for Gallagher, who is now 4 for 4.
And what a nice night for Gallagher. You see him there almost like he's trying to hold back a smile, but go ahead. It's a 4-hit night in the big leagues. You got to enjoy that as he jumps all over this first pitch that stayed up in the zone. A little slider that they definitely did not want to throw up. In that RBI spot, you don't wait around. Good hitters will tell you off-speed pitches are maybe not something that they're looking for first pitch of an at-bat, but if you hang one with the runner in scoring position, they're going to go after it. Gallagher cashed that one in.
The last time a Gallagher has had such a productive night, a whole patch of watermelons were destroyed. Random thought of the night. 4 for 4 for Cam Gallagher. 3 singles, a double. Now a run batted in.
And a visit from the trainer checking in, and they're kind of looking at his hand. I don't know if they're dealing. Whenever you see that, you see him rubbing his finger with his thumb. Could be a blister situation.
He's going to go out of the game. So for the second time in as many nights, a pitcher has to leave the game mid-inning because of an apparent injury. So we'll have a pitching change. Tell you who's coming on when we return. 4th of the night. Veteran right-hander Addison Reed. 53 appearances. You can throw away that one-loss record as a reliever. That makes no difference. Strikeout to innings, not what you usually see with Addison Reed, who over his career has been usually a 1 strikeout per inning type of guy.
And the guy's bounced around a little bit. He spent some time with multiple teams. He's been, of course, in that closer role before with the New York Mets, the Chicago White Sox, Arizona Diamondbacks, a little bit of time with the Red Sox last year, and here he is now with the Minnesota Twins. And you mentioned that strikeout rate over the course of his career, 9.2 strikeouts per 9, so right around 1 per. Great walk rate for him at 2.3. You love to see that. He's done a pretty good job over the course of his career keeping the ball in the ballpark, except for this year. 11 home runs allowed and 53 2/3 as we take a look at what the Royals have done now over their last 14 home games. Have played very well here at Kauffman Stadium.
Royals with a walk-off win last night against the Twins and just feeding off that energy this evening. Whit Merrifield. 5th plate appearance for Whit. Walked his last time up. Scored a couple of runs. Wow, this is modern day baseball. His last 4 at-bats have been against 4 different pitchers.
Yep, and that's kind of the way that it goes when we have those conversations about trying to compare generations, whether it's total numbers or hit streaks, whatever it may be. That's something that always has to be part of the conversation.
Smashed into the gap right center field. That'll get down and get all the way to the wall. Merrifield scoops around second. He'll have to stop as Cam Gallagher, the catcher in front of him, just couldn't get those legs to move fast enough.
No, it wasn't going to happen. There was an outside chance that this could have been a triple for Whit Merrifield, who runs really well, but his catcher does not. And so that was what the issue was here. Nice job hitting the ball the other way and stinging it the other way. But you see Gallagher, who has been catching. It's been a warm evening here in Kansas City. He has been on base in all 4 of his at-bats. And so the idea of trying to send him home, especially with a 10-2 lead, doesn't happen, as you see now the 50th multi-hit game this season for Whit Merrifield. And as you mentioned, 5 plate appearances against 4 different pitchers.
2-hit Whit. 50 multi-hit games, and they still haven't played 150 as a team, the Kansas City Royals. So more than once every 3 games. How do you do? Mondesi. Twins are doing the Royals are doing a good job of doubling their pleasure. They've got 6 doubles as a team. 2 for Merrifield, 2 for Gordon, a double for Cam Gallagher, and a double for Alcides Escobar. So 6 of the 16 hits have been doubles. They also had a triple for Escobar. So without a home run, it's a lot of extra base hits.
Pretty incredible. This ballpark, as we mentioned, really good for extra base hits, and the way the Royals are swinging it tonight and racking them up. So I mentioned the 6 RBIs for Alex Gordon, who is sitting on deck. 5 tonight. 6 is the most he's had since 14. Well, it's also his career high. The 5 RBIs he has tonight, 2nd most ever in a game for him, and so potentially an opportunity, if he can get on this inning, to at least tie his career high or maybe even surpass it.
3-2. All right. Well, if Reed misses the strike zone, we're not wishing him to do anything, but if he happens to miss the strike zone and we get a walk here, we will have Alex Gordon at the dish with a chance for some history. If he jumps the yard and gets himself a 4 spot, that'd be 9 runs batted in. Don't put the cart before the horse. Here's the 3-2. Nope, not going to happen, as Mondesi strikes out. Side is retired. If you've got a life, you got a Swiffer. 50 years of Kansas City Royal baseball, and so far so good on a steamy Saturday night. September 15th, 2018. They lead the Minnesota Twins 10-2 as we play inning number 8. Mabrice Valoria comes in place of Cam Gallagher. Gallagher trying to protect that perfect night. He finishes 4 for 4.
A great night for him. Did a nice job behind the plate as well, and the opportunity to catch a win. One for Ian Kennedy. Great offensive night all the way around. So for Cam Gallagher here in his very young big league career, certainly a night for him to remember.
He was feeling it. You could call him an on-Cam Gallagher. Here's Jake Cave. Whole bunch of nothing for Jake Cave against Ian Kennedy. He struck out 3 times in 3 at-bats against the right-hander. Now has to face the sidewinding southpaw Tim Hill. Ball and 2 strikes.
You know, it's one thing too when you look at numbers, you look at matchup numbers, and you say, okay, well, Jake Cave struggled against lefties, has so far this season, hitting just 180, but you know, that's for your standard lefty. In these kind of situations, I mean, you can almost throw some of those numbers out the window. Why not?
0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts against the right-hander, and then the lefty comes in. Cave gets down to the count 0-2. Battles back and gets a line drive single.
It really is incredible because the way that his night was going, and you're facing a tough lefty and you're expecting a bad swing. Now that breaking ball caught way too much of the plate. They were trying to sweep it and get it out of the zone. That's a nice job by Jake Cave to stay in there. Gets a pretty good breaking ball.
Ned Yost wants a new pitcher. We'll tell you who it is when we return. Tim Hill no longer on the hill for Kansas City. He's replaced by Glenn Sparkman. Sparkman inherits the runner on at first. Nobody out here in the 8th inning. And a base hit off the bat of the catcher, Astudillo. And going first to third goes Cave. So runners on at the corners. Nobody out for Minnesota here in the top of the 8th inning.
We'll take a look at the numbers for Sparkman. You see there 12 games, couple of starts for him so far this year. ERA up over 5, 24 punch outs to 14 walks. He has allowed 3 home runs in those 27 innings. And for Sparkman, the fastball's averaged 94 this year. He's got a slider, he's got a curveball, and you'll also see a changeup from the right-hander.
Caves on at third. Astudillo on at first. Here's Max Kepler. Confused, half swing, 0-1.
A good look at the slider, a tight one, and late break. And I think after you see a guy like Astudillo come out swinging at a first pitch fastball and hitting it pretty hard, never a bad idea to flip up something else. You don't want guys getting too comfortable too early.
Max Kepler, born in Berlin, Germany, speaks 3 languages. English is flawless. He speaks German, also speaks Polish. His father actually from Poland, an American mother, met over in Berlin, Germany. Has the distinction of being the European-born position player with the highest signing bonus ever. Line drive into center field. Merrifield has it played beautifully. It'll be a sacrifice fly. Cave tags from third and scores on the Twins' 3rd run.
I'm Colin Cowherd. Join me Monday on The Herd as we break down everything from a full weekend of college football and the NFL. Don't miss it. The Herd weekdays noon Eastern on FS1.
First out here in the 8th inning. Run does score, but at this juncture, Royals are happy to give up that run to get the first out. Ere Adrianza, 1 for 3. Strike 1. Twins scored their first run in the 2nd inning, scored another run in the 5th, and now a run here in the 8th. Kansas City has scored in 5 of their 7 innings thus far, including a 4 spot in the 4th inning. Neither team with a home run tonight. One and 2.
So it's interesting to kind of watch this over at first base. You got a guy like Astudillo who is a little bit more athletic than he probably looks, but with the score right now, the Royals are not holding him on, and so you got to believe that he is at least a little bit tempted to try to take second base, but it has to be an absolute no-brainer. Now the issue he's running into is not this part, but what's happening at second base, which is Mondesi's not that far from the bag, and so even though he could probably get himself a pretty decent jump, likely wants to be a little bit careful. So the idea of, getting that first stolen base of his career, it's got to be slightly tempting, but of course you cannot get thrown out in this situation under no circumstances. That'd be some pretty bad baseball, and who knows if they'd even give him the stolen base since they're not holding him on.
High pop up on the infield. Escobar. Astudillo, what was he thinking?
He's thinking about that stolen base.
He had no idea that there was just one out. A double play into the frame.
which is presented by Hankook Tire. We're going to take you back to Alex Gordon's big 2 RBI double. Nice pitch from Moya down and away, but an even better approach from the left-hander, and that drove in 2. And that gave the Royals a 6-1 lead at the time. They now lead it 10-3. And it's been a good night for Alex Gordon. 5 RBIs on the night. Second most he has ever had in a game in his career. He had 6 back in 2014. And so we thought maybe he would have gotten an opportunity with a couple of runners on last inning, but Mondesi struck out. So if he wants to tie that career high, it's going to take a home run. He's going to have to do it against Matt Belisle as he is on for his 30th game of the year. It's been a rough go of it. You see the 8.62 ERA, 24 strikeouts to 11 walks for the veteran right-hander.
You're right when you say veteran. Matt Belisle, originally a 2nd-round draft pick of the Atlanta Braves in the 1998 Major League draft. Signed out of high school. Kind of interesting to note that Matt Belisle, who's been a professional now for 20 seasons, actually still has more innings pitched as a minor leaguer than as a big leaguer.
So I'll assume that he started
as a minor league
level,
and when he made it to the big leagues was a starter for the Cincinnati Reds for a couple of years, but then for the most part the lion's share of his innings have been out of the pen. One year made 80 appearances out of the pen for the Colorado Rockies.
This is game number 670 for him at the big league level.
Both the doubles by Alex Gordon down the left field line. Earlier in the game, he was being defended with 3 infielders on the right side of the infield. That's not the case here. Late in the game, obviously a different pitcher, different circumstances, but with every opportunity to throw a shift on the board with nobody on the base paths, the Twins are choosing not to. Is that time and score, or is that because of the pitcher, or why is this?
No, I don't think you do it because of score, quite honestly. If you're going to do it, you have to fully commit. For me, you do it all the time. Now, it could be an adjustment based on the pitcher. Right? It's not just a standard shift that you do for hitters strictly. It's the same all the time. It all depends on the pitcher, the stuff, the velocity, what he does against those types of pitchers. What does he use predominantly, or what are you going to try to get him out with? You may say, listen, we're going to shift him. Your slider's your best pitch, whatever it may be. There's so much information that goes into it, but I don't think you stop shifting based on score because you want your guys to be comfortable doing that all the time when it matters the most. So if you're going to do it, as far as I'm concerned, you should do it all the time.
A lot of old-time baseball bird dogs always say, it's an old saw. You come into a game, the ball will find you. Chris Jimenez is now the first baseman. Very first ball put into play goes straight to Jimenez. He's able to make the play. Out in right field is Johnny Field. It'd be kind of cool if his middle name was right, but it's not.
It's not left or center, is it either?
Even out. No, yeah. It was parents were only thinking. Middle name is David, in case you're wondering. Missed opportunity in the Field family. Salvador Perez. It's hit hard, but to the wrong man. Petite. So last night's hero, Salvador Perez, with the walk-off grand slam home run. Now taking the collar. He's 0 for 5.
Well, it's just Salvador Perez and O'Hearn right now as he steps in as the only Kansas City Royals hitters who do not have a hit this evening. $16 hits on the board, and almost hard to believe that your 4 and 5 hitters potentially could be 0 for 10 combined.
Oh and 2 quickly to O'Hearn. And a lot of damage there done top of the order. 6 combined hits for Merrifield, Mondesi, and Gordon. And then the bottom part of the order, we don't show you Gallagher. But Gallagher used to be in the number 9 hole, and he was 4 for 4.
9 hits from the bottom 3 hitters in the order tonight. You love seeing that. Certainly Ned Yost likes seeing that. You got a couple of young players there in Herrera and Gallagher. Escobar, of course, the veteran.
In over a century of Major League Baseball, I gotta guess, when your number 9 hitter goes 4 for 4, you win 90% of the time. Oh my! Almost got O'Hearn. And a little bit of a glare.
I didn't love that, and obviously it's been a rough night for him with 3 strikeouts and down in the count 0-2, and not really wanting to have that 4th strikeout. Then he gets one right at his shins.
Ball and 2 strikes. And just like Perez before him, O'Hearn going to take the collar. He's 0 for 5 as well. Welcome back, everyone. Twins running out of opportunities. They have just 3 outs to play with. They trail Glenn Sparkman and the Kansas City Royals by 7. 10-3 is our score. Top of the 9th inning. Gregorio Petit called strike 1. Petit pops it up. It's going to be playable. Merrifield has been flawless in center field tonight, and that continues. 1 down. So 1 out of the 9th inning. Joe Mauer was replaced defensively in the bottom of the 8th inning. So that means we will see the first at bat of the night for Ryan David Field. I'm sorry, Johnny David Field. He swings to the first pitch, and there's absolutely no one over there. For the last 95 years, that's where your second baseman always played, but not tonight. Rosel Herrera was shading towards the second base bag, and the 16 hopper makes it through.
Well, one of the conversations we have with shifts is what adjustments should we be seeing from hitters, and do you want guys to make big changes to their swings? Not necessarily. If you're not a guy who's not comfortable going the other way, why try to, or should you be bunting at the same time? You'll take those every time that you can get them, and there are some guys that probably have to adjust a little bit, and what we've seen from Alex Gordon tonight I think is a good example of that. He has been beat up by the shifts, and he did a really nice job going the other way, and you just saw Johnny Field in that spot, whether it was intentional or not, does a nice job of going the other way and finding a hole.
Here's Logan Forsythe. Forsythe with hits in each of his last 2 times up. Yeah, but CJ, forever in baseball, when you watch guys take batting practice, it's always the same. It's a half-hearted bunt attempt, and then it's go the opposite way your first time through, and then you come around and maybe you try and go to the bull side, and then maybe you try and jump the yard. But in batting practice, even the biggest boppers still try and go the opposite way with a couple of swings.
Yeah, and I think part of that is getting your swing right and getting comfortable as you're going through kind of your warm-ups during batting practice on the field, or if it's in the cages, whatever you may be doing. I do think it's hard for dead pull power hitters to make that adjustment in game. And they might be late on pitches, and that'll give them the opportunities to go the other way. But I think they fear, I understand why, giving up their greatest tool. You know, the idea of not being able to really let it fly and, okay, I'm going to try to shorten my swing. And when you're unsuccessful, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not even my game. Why am I doing that? That can really start to kind of steamroll into a lot of frustration for a hitter. So it's tough. A lot of you hear people say, well, just hit the ball the other way. Boy, a lot of hitters would tell you they wish it was that simple, especially when you're getting pounded in with cutters and fastballs.
Foul tipped in and out of the catcher's glove. Yeah, another thing that I think people at home don't realize is sometimes you'll talk about a hitter and say, wow, he's done a great job of just fouling this guy off and staying alive. I've talked to a whole bunch of really good hitters. There's no such thing as an intentional foul ball. You know, guys who have been in the big leagues for 15 years say they've never tried to hit a foul ball. Every single swing is an attempt to put the ball in play.
Without a doubt. I believe that. You'll see some guys take some half-hearted swings, and it looks like, well, they were just trying to be short and foul it off. No, they were just trying to get to it, and it was the pitch that made them uncomfortable.
Merrifield with the play, and now Glenn Sparkman and the Kansas City Royals are 1 out away from win number 52 on the year. Here's Eddie Rosario. Final pulse for Minnesota. Called strike one. Since the second inning, the Twins have trailed. Now down to out number 27. 3 Royal defenders right side of the infield. Twins manager Paul Molitor ejected back in the 4th inning. He hadn't seen the majority of this game. The Kansas City Royal team that continues to play really well here at Kauffman Stadium the final month of the season. Into center field. Merrifield makes the play, and the ball game is over. Kansas City, they keep on keeping on here at home. They have now won 13 of their last 15 at Kauffman Stadium. From my partner C.J. Nikowski and our entire FS1 crew, I'm Eric Collins saying so long, everybody, from Kansas City. When we return, other side of the break, Mike Hill standing by in L.A.